want to say thank you to all of you for this tough election year. It was one of for me, probably the least attended elections since I've been working here. However, thank God that Don was out there waving his hand and letting everybody know that he was up for election. We had a few more people show up at the polls.
I thought I scared them away.
No, you brought him to the polls. People specifically said because Don was out there waving his hand, we knew it was an election day. So that was good. We had about 12% show up, which is pretty poor, but where the election was moved and it was a different date and everything was changed, we still had turnout, which is good. A little boring for those of the people that were sitting at the polls, but otherwise, thank you all for running. Wilhelmina, your oath of office is a little different than everybody else's, so we're going to start with you. As congratulations on being on the Board of Assessors. I know you're real familiar with this room. Step it up in a little different role. If you would please repeat after me. Yep. Raise your right hand. I, Wilhelmina Morris, having been chosen to assess taxes and estimate the value of property for the purpose of taxation for the town of Rockport for the next 3 years ensuing, do swear that I will truly and impartially, according to my best skill and judgment, assess and apportion all such taxes as I may during the time assess. That I will neither overvalue or undervalue any property subject to taxation, and I will faithfully perform all the duties of said office. Congratulations. You are now on the Board of Assessors. Now, if the other three elected officials would raise your right hand. And please repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform all the duties incumbent on me as an elected official, as a member of the state your office, according to the best of my abilities and understanding, agreeably to the rules and regulations of the Constitution, the laws of the Commonwealth, and the rules, regulations, and bylaws of the town of Rockport. So help me God. Congratulations to all of you. And that's it.
Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, June 18th, 2019 Town of Rockport Board of Selectmen's meeting. If everyone could please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, public comment period. Toby?
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. A month ago in public comment period, I asked if you would invite the Community Preservation Committee in to discuss and explain the various projects that they would be offering to the fall town meeting. Few people attend their meetings, as few people attend any public meetings, and my thought was it would be the one chance that people would have to know about the projects before the town meeting. You said you'd consider it, but it has not come to pass. I'm told that, pressive items on the agenda, it wasn't possible, and they're voting on the projects tonight. So any discussion about, whether the particular projects are advisable or desirable would come after the fact. What I would hope, a poor second best, would be that when you come to vote on whether you would support the various projects for the fall town meeting, that you would discuss the various projects individually, not just lump them all together and vote for them, and also offer the public a chance to comment on them. Is that a reasonable request?
Well, Toby, let me just make one correction. So, in general, we always discuss the projects because they're on the warrant, and we always discuss them individually because we vote whether or not to support them. I mean, occasionally they get lumped together with the list of articles that we support, but we would always discuss, anyone is welcome to make any discussion. If there was one that any selectman didn't want to support, we would pull it out and discuss it individually. And I'll let Ruth comment, but I don't think it's appropriate for us to have them before they vote on what projects they're putting forward, because I
Right.
wouldn't want to influence
Right. I think
CPC.
just from my years of being the chairperson on CPC, I think it's important that the committee vet them out, interview everyone, talk about them, make their recommendations for town meeting. And at town meeting, we have the ability, all residents, to speak on individual projects, yay or nay, positives and negatives, and go from there. I think that's our time for us to support it and the residents to either support it or not pass it forward. I don't think at this point it's fair to cancel it. They're bringing them forward and they go to the voters. It's their decision.
Indeed. The other issue I was concerned about, you have representatives of the hospital here tonight, and I have a question and a comment that goes probably with it, if I would be allowed to ask that.
Why don't you do it right now during public comment, and then hopefully they can
Yes.
address it when they speak, because it's not gonna be a back and forth.
Yes.
Tonight's just an update from them.
At 65, you qualify for Medicare. But before that, those who meet the income qualifications qualify for the famous Romney Care, which I call the pauper's insurance. I had the benefit of it for some years and discovered to my mortification that numbers of the doctors don't see people who have the pauper's insurance. And some of these doctors are given hospital privileges. And my question for the hospital representatives would be, can you, as a condition of giving doctors, specialists, hospital privileges, require them to take all comers? That would include the people who have the Romney Care, the pauper's insurance, who at present can be left out in the cold and treated as second-class citizens.
Okay, thank you. Great. Others for public comment? In the back.
I'm here on behalf of Thomas Beaton from the Boy Scouts. I'm here on behalf of the Boy Scouts. I've already spoken to Selectman Campbell a couple weeks ago at Fireman Sunday. Would like to invite the whole board down on the car show day to help judge and hand out a couple of trophies, if you would like.
Great.
The date is Sunday, July 28th. The show is 11 to 2. Trophies are awarded at 1:30.
Great, and
Thank
I
you.
already Dawn's in. I'll have to check to make sure that's not a weekend that I'm away with my kids. But if I'm here, I'd love to help as well. I know.
Perfect. We'd love to have you come down.
Yeah.
I'll, I'll try to
It
get
looks
the
like
day
you
off.
guys already have a big online presence, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of cars booked to come? Do they book in advance?
Yeah, well, no, some of them do. The local ones will.
Okay.
The ones that will come from out of town usually show up the day of because it's all about weather and
Yeah.
Oh, don't you
whatnot,
have parameters on what cars are included in the show? They have to be certain years. Are there
we try to keep it 86, 87 and older just to kind of keep the newer riffraff away. It's not that kind of show. We typically see most of like the 60s and 70s and the older muscle cars and such like that.
Awesome,
So
Cool.
awesome.
And then I know this is a really major fundraiser for you
Right,
guys,
yep.
right? And it
Big
went really
one.
well the
Yep.
last time you did
Yep.
it, obviously.
yes,
Great.
big one. So
Yeah, great.
Perfect. Thank
Yep.
you so much.
Perfect.
Thanks for
Thank you,
inviting
Patty.
us.
Thank
Yeah,
you
looking
so
for
much.
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.
All right.
Public comment in the back? Sure. Yep.
Stephanie Rossio, 58 Beach Street. I'm here on behalf of several of my neighbors. I know you had said at the last meeting we were going to discuss the scuba divers issue at this meeting, but I didn't see it on the agenda. And we just want to know, what is the status? Are these scuba diver schools getting permits? Are they being limited? Does it cost anything? That kind of, we'd like to know what's going on.
Yep. Of course. Mitch, do you
Mitch.
want to give?
Certainly, Madam Chair.
Yep.
So we are still working through internally some adjustments to policies. The police chief and DPW in our office is working through that. The schools have been very diligent in getting the permits through the process that we currently have in place. So
Oh, they have this
they
year?
have.
Yeah.
It is. We see a significant number. I think in the packet
They were
that we
included.
usually
Yeah,
include
there were like
those
8 or
updates.
10. Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
And they've been very good about calling and checking in and being on top of what's there. So they're using the process that we have now, and we expect that we'll be able to come in front of the board a little later on. We're trying to gather a little bit more data now, too, that they're starting to use it. So we expect that'll be along at some point. It'll be certainly on the agenda when that does come.
Yeah.
I did have, I don't know if we want to wait till after, but I'll throw it out there and I can wait on the answer and who would answer it after. But I noticed in the packet that one of the schools is kind of dominated for the summer. Is that the way this is going to work, or do you want, and we can address that after, I don't.
Local girl.
At this point, it's first come, first served, like it is with any of our
So they
beach
can
and
put in
park
for the whole
permits.
summer?
Folks can book ahead. Yep.
Okay.
Are you limiting the number of schools at any one time?
DPW is reviewing the number of people per beach, so that they are juggling that around a little
Yeah.
bit to make
That's
sure
part
that
of
it's
what
not
they're
overwhelming.
working on, right?
Right.
Yeah, and this
So
is
what
part of
is a
helping us
safe number,
test it a little
right?
bit to see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
So right now, so that we can know as the neighbors, is it limited to 10 people, 20 people, 30 people?
I don't know the exact number that Rich is using to make the determinations now. I think it's still in that test phase on what each different beach can handle. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most
And
of the permits, oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Sarah.
no, go ahead.
I said most of the permits that I saw were between 10 and 15.
Yep.
Is
Per
what-
school?
Right.
Per school.
Right, but can 5 schools be there at the same time?
That's what's being worked on now.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the details have yet to be worked
It
on.
really would help us. I mean, we've been asking for years
Right.
about this.
I-
Does it cost anything to get a permit?
not at this time.
Not
Not at
not
this
right
time.
now, but once it comes in front of this board, that's one of the things that we will decide on. And I was going to say, we will let you know, of course, when that.
When it's on the
Because
agenda.
Because it was
Is on
going to
the
be
agenda.
discussed tonight.
I don't
The
think.
last meeting, they told me tonight.
Yeah, I
We
don't
expected
think-
it,
Not
but
at
if
the
if
meeting
it's-
that I chaired?
2 weeks ago?
No, I didn't
Yeah,
say
I don't
that,
think
Stephanie.
so.
And you and I have spoken since then,
Okay, that's
too.
what I thought it was tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's Sarah sets the agenda, and it's not, it's just a matter of, like, we've had to take things off of the agenda tonight.
I realize
Because
it
it was
was
so
busy.
packed.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
but I don't
it's-
think they're ready yet.
They're
right?
not,
Yeah.
no, they're not. And
Yeah,
that-
so as soon as they're
Right.
ready, and we will reach out to you, our office will reach out to you directly so that
Right.
you know.
Okay.
So that you aren't just having a,
Couple of, like, side questions to that. Is there a policy about public undressing on the street?
well, I was actually thankful that you sent us that video. It was interesting. It reminded me of being in high school when you're on the bus trying to
there a
like, change your
policy?
Yeah.
uniform for. But I think that's one of the things that they're looking into, right, Mitch?
Yep.
It is that there's a bylaw on dressing and undressing in vehicles.
It's just in vehicles?
Yes, it's in vehicles, but certainly if there's
Not in
if
public?
there's an issue that there's a concern about the appropriateness of what somebody is doing, folks should contact the police at the time of the incident.
Yeah,
But that really doesn't work because it takes the police a little while to get. Tonight, there was a lady down to here with nothing on, and I guess her
Right.
husband or her boyfriend, taking off his pants right in front of my house.
right. But just so you know, even if it doesn't get them there at the moment, it's on the record.
Okay.
So it's really helpful if the police look at, like, if Mitch contacts the police and they look at the the previous 7 days, if they're able to say, we had 10 calls for indecency within the last
Okay.
7 days, as opposed to, the video is helpful, all the videos are helpful, but it's more helpful for them to get a call in the moment and then send the videos.
Even if we know they're not going to get
Even if
there
you
in
know they're
time.
not
Right,
going to come down.
right.
Okay.
I
Yep.
tell people the same thing about music, because oftentimes we'll have someone come apply for an outdoor,
Yep.
live music permit, and they'll say, we complain all the time. And I said, well, the police don't have any records of anyone calling. So
We just
unless
feel
you
terrible
call,
calling all the
I
time.
know, but
Yep.
unfortunately, that's,
Yep.
you know,
Together.
and the police are very respectful, and they would, you know, they handle things very well, but it is important that you call when it's happening.
Okay. And one last thing. I think you need to, I haven't been in the men's room, the public men's room, but my neighbor tells me he goes for walks in the morning, and at 8 o'clock or so in the morning, the one on Back Beach is fine. At noontime, he says it's terrible.
Okay,
So
we'll let them know that as well.
I'm certain who's using it, and
Okay.
it needs to be checked, yeah. Okay. So when do you think this is going to come up?
I don't want to give an exact date now because I don't want people to expect that it'll be right at that point.
Right.
I expect towards the end of the summer it will probably come up.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the late.
End of
probably
the
at
summer,
latest.
but the summer's the time that the
So
problem
we're-
is.
We're gathering information, people are getting their permits.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in order for us to have a document that's helpful for everybody and that is useful, we need a little more of this data that we're trying to gather. So it'll probably be towards the end of the summer, so we have enough information to
Yeah.
use.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Okay, thank
just
you
to
so
know,
much, and
we're-
thanks
Thank you.
for,
We're concerned,
for all
yeah.
of your emails.
Yep.
I know, and we're
Yep.
concerned with you, I
Yeah.
promise.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it was very interesting this weekend that there were a lot of divers at Front Beach, not Back Beach. There were like,
I think there are fish, because there are fly fishermen down there
yeah,
too. So I
but
think
there were
are-
divers too.
Yeah.
Lots of divers at Front Beach. So they've sort of moved.
Not just Back Beach.
No, they sort of moved from Back Beach to Front Beach. I think right about now. Last weekend there were
Great,
15 or so at Front. So it was very obvious.
great.
So,
Thank you
yeah.
so much. Nice to
Thank
see you.
you.
Yep, public comment? Be careful with the little boy, do we know? Little boy in the back. I just want to ask her.
Yes, Z. Seppel on 92 Granite Street. I was coming over here tonight and got the agenda, and I see that a number of agenda items have been canceled. Can you please tell me why the reorganization of the board has been postponed? Or
Yeah, we postponed a lot tonight. Unfortunately, Mitch was traveling at the end of last week, and we didn't connect. I had a busy end of work week, so we didn't connect to set the agenda. So we actually this morning pulled off a handful of items that are going to take a significant amount of time, and we're going to push them to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Sure. Just while she's making her way, do you have a little one in the back there? What agenda item are you here for? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, perfect.
right
So you
now?
can speak after she does. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure you weren't stuck here waiting with the little guy.
Hi, Patricia Pierce, 35 Broadway. Is this on?
Yep.
Okay. Last week or last time you asked me to submit some research that I had mentioned on the effect of hazardous radiation on the plant health, trees dying. And I submitted a whole bunch of stuff today to the town administrator, and it's too much, I think.
No, that's okay. If you submitted it to them, they'll scan it and include it digitally for us.
Okay.
They'll send it home with us. So it's not something for that for you to go over here, but they'll send it home to us. And then if you
Right.
wanted to discuss it further, we would put it on a future agenda.
Okay, I guess I have a request then. I would ask that you consider forming a committee to identify the effect of hazardous pollutants on the plant and human health of the town of Rockport.
Okay, so why don't we then, why don't we each read the information that you sent, and then we can discuss whether or not we think we would agree to that after we have just some time to read the research that you sent. Does that make sense? Mitch? Everyone? Does that sound good? Okay. So maybe come back, come back to public comment at our next meet. Next meeting is just 1 week. So maybe give us a couple weeks and then come back.
Okay, what I'm concerned about is that the hazardous information isn't being made public and the problem isn't being recognized. So I would like to present some of the hazards at some point, if not tonight, if
Okay.
you're too busy.
Okay, I don't think,
Let's see what's in the materials presented so far, and then we can
figure out,
what-
and we'll figure out the
what
most
needs to-
appropriate way for you to
yeah.
present them. Yeah, I think that
Okay.
makes sense.
All right.
Great. And do we have your contact information? I think,
I'm right across the street.
okay.
I'll give you an email up front then.
Perfect.
I can wave.
Perfect.
Thank you, Pat.
Only in Rockport. Yep. Hold on, Toby. Did you want to speak in the back? Perfect.
Yep.
So cute.
This is my first time, so.
Oh, what a
Andrea
cutie.
Alexander, 1A Pigeon Hill Court.
okay.
And I just am really excited and interested in finding out more about the vote last week on the 2 retail licenses. And I've asked the selectman, I think the office manager, and she said that the process hasn't been established yet for the application, and that you're supposed to submit a letter of interest, and then they're going to be looked at, it sounded like on a first come, first served basis, which sounds strange to me. But I don't know. But I'm just inquiring and showing up saying that I have a huge interest in it, and I've been in the wine business for over 15 years, and I've wanted to do this for at least 7 years, so I'm afraid that I've missed some initial process.
So
and
there is a list that's actually started months ago when it first started.
Right.
I'll let the town administrator talk a little bit about the process. But, I mean, the other thing maybe we could do, if they're okay with it, is the businesses at the top of the list, we could always connect you with them. Do you know what I mean? The businesses that kind of got their names on the list when it first. Do you want to?
Sure. So we have, as of this morning, there are 6. So another business in town dropped off one today, so there are 6 already in the queue.
Am I in the queue?
I'm not sure what.
Andrea Alexander. I sent an email last week to Debbie in the selectman's office.
I don't
asked her
know.
today if that would qualify as my letter of interest.
I honestly, I'm not sure. I know another one came in today. I haven't dug through myself,
Okay.
but I know a business. I happen to take the business ones
Okay.
directly today. So there are potentially 6 or 7 in the queue now. So we are going in the order that people submitted their letters of interest, and there are 2. The first 2 already have made clear that they're still ready to move forward with the process. So they'll get the applications, and if for some reason one of theirs falls through, we'll move to the next person on the list, and we'll work our way down that process.
Okay, I guess since that's clear to me, I guess I'm concerned because that seems to be, at least for me, having just found out about it, I'm a recent homeowner here and didn't go to the last, whatever agenda that the 2 licenses were approved to be put onto the ballot, I wasn't aware of. And so I only found out about it when I voted last Friday.
Yeah.
So therefore, I would have had no way of submitting my letter of interest or intent previously, which seems unfair. And I'm saying that because I feel behind already, and I'm very much want to be able to pursue the opportunity. So I think there should be some transparency in regarding the whole process.
Yeah, so it originated at town meeting when, which town meeting was it?
2 years.
It's been 2 years.
It's actually
Yes.
been 2 years, so it was a public vote at town
Okay.
meeting. And that's kind of the quirkiness about small town politics, right?
Right.
Is that sometimes if you don't, or don't live here when there's a town meeting, you kind of miss things that happen. But as soon as it passed at that town meeting, we had local businesses that immediately submitted
Right.
letters of interest.
But
you
the
know.
letter of interest wasn't posted anywhere.
It
I
was in
wouldn't
the
have even.
newspaper. It was in the newspaper as well. Yep.
Oh, okay. So I'm just behind then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there are,
Good to get on the list.
yeah, and there
Yep.
are, we do still have restaurant licenses.
There are some restaurant
There's,
licenses
we
available.
do still have restaurant
Yeah,
licenses
no, I'm
available.
particularly interested in the retail license.
Yeah.
Is the application process going to be transparent in terms of what's
Everything
the
is
merit?
transparent.
Yeah, so I think
Everything
that.
is transparent.
Okay,
that's
so
the
I just
term.
want to know how I find the information, like how are you going to decide?
Yep.
Based
Sure.
on merit or
So
based on?
we're going to address them in the order that they were, the letters were received. We utilize the application process that the ABCC, the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission, requires. And the board will be deciding tonight what the fee will be for that.
So that's
But-
on
so
tonight's agenda,
it is,
deciding
yep.
the fee.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is, it has been consistently transparent from the beginning.
Okay.
We've been very clear with everybody, folks who get a license, everybody who gets a license from the board for alcohol, et cetera, that is discussed and voted on in the meeting. So we will work through in the order that we did receive the letters. So the first two will get the information on any applications and the fees once the board sets them. So later this week, they'll be provided that information. And then, you know, if they complete that, they'll be able to come in front of the board for a license hearing and get their license.
And that's
go from
those
that.
are public hearings that are posted in the newspaper as well as is on our agendas. Yeah.
Is there anything else this woman has to do in order to make sure that she's on the list?
If you sent that email, again, I haven't seen it personally, but if
I
Deb
did
has
last
it and she
Friday.
and she confirmed it, then it's in the queue. That's all we would need for now.
Okay, and so how do I follow up? I don't do anything, I just wait?
You would just wait, and if it comes to your point on the list, then we would let you know.
Yeah. I mean, you might want to keep an eye out for for any public hearings that are scheduled so you can come and kind of see how it goes and see if there are any issues for the other businesses as well.
You can always call the board, the office
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well,
And keep
whenever you
checking
feel
on it.
like it. It just, you know, and find out exactly where you are and what's going on.
Yeah. Debbie's super helpful. Was it Debbie that you spoke with?
Yeah.
Yeah. Debbie's super
So,
helpful.
so basically, the two licenses are gonna be decided on a first-come, first-served basis in terms of the letter of interest that was,
Those two, yes. Yeah, which is what we decided 2 years ago.
I see.
Yeah.
So people knew that they had to get a letter of interest in
To-
as soon
yeah.
as the vote passed?
Which was,
that.
it was.
Before
yeah.
that.
For that.
Well, it was.
Well, how
it-
could you put a letter of interest in before the vote
It
passed? if
passed
you
at
don't-
town meeting.
Right.
So it passed at town meeting and then people put letters of, and because
Okay.
town politics isn't
So just
like
one thing,
super
technically,
fast.
I submitted a letter of interest 7 years ago.
Letters were subsequent to the vote.
Yeah, right.
The
Yeah,
letters
the
were
letters were
subsequent to the vote, just so you know.
Okay.
We don't have
And it
anything
was talked
from,
about beforehand, I'm sorry, Mitch, I apologize.
ahead.
The letters were subsequent to the vote. The vote happened, but then the letters came in.
Okay.
It's not that the letters came in, they were waiting,
Okay.
then the vote was taken, then they were put in queue. That's not
Alright.
how it worked.
I appreciate your time. I just want to, since I probably won't all see you again, I think that I'm meant to do this, so I just want everybody
stay
to
in-
know that.
honestly,
I am
stay in
like,
touch
I am the
then.
person that you want. Culture, art, music, wine, knowledge. I'm Rockport beauty.
Cool.
It's meant to be for me.
Then
so I
stick
hope I get-
around.
We need
Stick
you. Don't-
around.
That's right. Be patient and you'll get
Thank
there.
you.
Yep. Plus, he's so cute.
He's so cute. Oh my God. And we do need restaurants. So if you like,
Yeah,
we're-
yeah.
if you happen to partner with someone who also
Yeah.
wants to open a restaurant,
Yeah,
we'd love
that
to
would be
see you
great.
here sooner than later.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Okay. Anyone else for public comment briefly? Toby, is it a different comment?
Yes, would you give the materials that Pat Pierce is giving to you to the Board of Health and ask them to review them?
Madam Chair, why doesn't the board review the information and
Yeah,
then
we're
make a
gonna review them
determination in the
first,
meeting
yeah.
where
If
it
we
goes?
decide what to do.
And
Can I just say
I-
something real quick?
Sure.
So you have a habit of asking us to do the work that other committees, you want them to look at. If you want another committee to look at something, go to that committee and ask them to do it. We have other committees that come in here regularly that sit before us. You've been here, you've seen it, you're at every meeting, and we have regular dialogue with them so they know what's going on. If there are things within those meetings that you want them to know about, such as these, please let them know. But don't use us as a conduit for things that you don't have to. You can go direct to the source, and you don't have to use us as for that. So go right to them if you'd like to do that.
And-
Thank you.
And Pat, I think I've seen Pat at the Board of Health meeting. Didn't I see you at one of the recent ones? No? Okay. But they meet in the annex. It's tonight. And I'm the liaison to the Board of Health, and we'd welcome you to come and present packets to all of them, and they can send it to them via email.
And I'm done with it. I'm all done with it.
Yeah. And they can,
She can. I think, though, I would still suggest
we-
that
we
first
need
the
to
board
review it.
needs to
Yeah.
review
Right.
it.
Board
and then
needs to
we'll send
review it
over
before
to
we're
the
gonna,
Board of Health.
before we're gonna pass along information. We
Yep.
need to review it
Yep.
before we, yeah. Or you could go directly to the Board of Health yourself. Okay. Monica?
Monica Lawton, 11 Story Street. Just very briefly picking up on the concerns that have been expressed about pollutants and damage to trees in town. I just wanted to call your attention to the fact, to the absolute devastation in Pigeon Cove that has been brought on by the gypsy moths last year. Fortunately, we don't seem to see a big return of them this year, but I suggest you take a drive around Stockholm Avenue, Pigeon Hill, Curtis Street. At least 40% to 50% of the trees, big, mature oak trees, are dead. It is sickening to see the devastation. I don't know how homeowners are going to deal with it because there is so much to take down, and each tree like that costs $2,000 and more to take down. So it's changing and will change the character of the neighborhood. I know DPW has been talking about a tree policy in town. It really is a shame the town wasn't able to do something to try to help the residential areas, but I wanted you to be aware. The south end has not been touched by it, but Pigeon Cove is absolutely devastated.
I wouldn't say not been touched, because we're in the south end and we've definitely been touched, but
Oh,
not,
really?
but
Yeah.
not nearly as bad
Yeah,
as.
it's
Yeah.
amazing how it's isolated pockets in that
Yeah,
pocket. in
no, we
Pigeon Cove.
definitely have it, but not quite as.
Monica,
I wanted you to be aware.
yeah,
No,
no,
thank
that's
you.
fine. I'm not going to speak for Denise, but I know Denise and I have had correspondence with this from residents out that way. And there's really not a whole lot that I know of that can be done. I mean, even by the way, I thought it was spraying or some sort of mitigation. I don't know what the solution is.
So one
Maybe
of,
you know better than I
yeah,
do.
one of the solutions is to spray with BT, Bacillus thuringia or something, but there's concerns that that can harm bee populations, and I think this is a point in time where we don't want to be taking those chances. So there's really very limited things that we can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
I think it's important to kind of monitor the situation
Yeah.
because
Yep.
if it blooms again,
Yeah.
perhaps we need to have some kind of a
Right.
committee or looking into it to see if there is anything.
And I don't know if they tie in, and I don't want to get on this road, but I'm just going to state this. I know that the nuclear regulatory stuff, the Seabrook stuff that was brought about the last time in concern. I don't know if that's being confused with the gypsy moth problem that's causing some of the devastation.
I'm not
So-
trying to tie them together
Right, no,
whatsoever. I'm just
but when you see a
expressing
dead tree, you want to attribute it to something, and you don't know what it
it's
is.
definitely gypsy moths.
Okay, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Got it. Okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you very much. Anything else for public comment? We good? Okay, next I would ask Ruth to introduce, we have two guests here this evening, and it's most fitting, of course, that Selectwoman George introduces them.
It's my pleasure to introduce Cindy Cafasso Donaldson, Vice President of Addison Gilbert, and Phil Cormier, President of Beverly Hospital in Addison Gilbert. And they're going to give us an update on the Addison Gilbert Beth Israel Deaconess Leahy Health merger and consolidation, and tell us what's new and upcoming at Addison Gilbert for us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us. Obviously, I'm Cindy Cafasso Donaldson, and that's Phil.
You don't have to talk. These pick up pretty well. You don't have to talk right into them. It
Oh,
will.
good.
She'll adjust it to you in
Okay,
the background.
great.
But
Thank you.
welcome to both of you. Thanks for joining us
Sure,
tonight.
thank you very much. It's our. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, great. It's our distinct pleasure to be here tonight, and I am Phil, and she is Cindy, and we're not a tag team. So we just, as at the request of the Board of Selectmen, we just wanted to come and give you an update on certainly what's going on at Addison Gilbert, but we wanted to give a little context about the healthcare system in Massachusetts, because I think without that context, it's very it's meaningful in understanding some of the challenges we face, but also some of the opportunities we face, and also I think it gives you an appreciation for what a gem Addison Gilbert Hospital is, and how fortunate we are to have that in the community. So again, my title is President of Beverly Hospital and Addison Gilbert. Beverly and Addison Gilbert are two of the hospitals that we have. We also have a third hospital in Lynn called Bay Ridge Hospital. It's a psychiatric hospital. All three of those are singularly licensed facility by the Department of Public Health. We function as a single entity. We act as one employer. We act as all those various things that you want. Most importantly, we coordinate care between those three sites. We were a collection of community hospitals that got together in the 1990s. Obviously, Addison Gilbert, Beverly, and there was a hospital in Lynn that joined us at that time. We've been able, but it's important to understand that as healthcare has evolved, we've evolved as our system, both Beverly and Addison Gilbert, also when we were part of Leahy Health, and also we're going into a new future evolution with Beth Israel Leahy Health. I think everybody knows that community hospitals in Massachusetts, they were prevalent about 20, 30 years ago. There was approximately 12 on the North Shore. There's 4 today. And so it's important to understand that, not from a point of fear, but from a point of understanding that the healthcare needs have changed, have evolved. We are one of the both solid, strong, and vibrant organizations. We remain in that as those characteristics. We expect that the new relationship with the system will also have the same characteristics. In the packet that we submitted to the board earlier, there's some information in there, backdrop. The first slide is just some of the challenges that we face. It says for the CEO, but quite frankly, it's for the hospitals. The challenges are not unique to us. They're consistent with what you would experience with any business, or for that matter, what the town of Rockport might be experiencing today. Financial challenges, regulatory challenges, those types of things, resource issues. But we've been able to be successful in navigating that, and I'll talk a little bit about how we've done that. At the national level, we believe also at Beverly High, on a personal level and also at our system, we believe that healthcare is not a privilege, it's a right, and that everybody should have access to health care. The great news is that in the Massachusetts was one of the first states that had universal health care. Romney Cares, it's been known as it was mentioned earlier. And that actually, we have we are the state in the United States that has the most amount of insured of our population. We have about 97 or 98%, which is terrific. Unfortunately, Romney Care and then subsequently the ACA, which is also called Obamacare, has been under kind of a modification lately, which has made some additional challenges on a national level, not so much on a local level. But the unfortunate part about that is Massachusetts has the highest healthcare costs in the United States. And the United States actually has the highest healthcare costs in the world. So if you think about that, we've got the highest costs in the United States and the world. Massachusetts, the highest costs in the United States. The great news is we've got the best health care in the United States, in Massachusetts. The better news about that is we've seen a decrease in cost of health care as we've seen an increase in quality in Massachusetts in particular. And that's great news for business owners, certainly great news for municipalities who have to pay for insurance for their workers. Even better news, Addison, Gilbert, and Beverly, we are one of the lowest cost and highest quality providers. And Cindy will talk a little bit about that later. Not just in our system, but in Massachusetts. That's been recognized by some national organizations. But the best news is we, as in part of our Beth Israel Leahy Health, our new affiliation, we have to do even more. There's some graphs in your packet that show some healthcare cost trends, which are pretty alarming if you are, again, worried about the economics of healthcare. But the good news is we've seen a diminishment of those trends of the increased costs in Massachusetts. And sorry, I'm not going to mention that.
I thought it was a good point.
No, that's okay. And so it's great news. The reality, though, is there's a lot of federal initiative and local initiatives, some of them in your packet, I won't go into them now, to try to help rein in that cost of health care. There's also other initiatives to reduce what they call surprise billing and those types of things that I won't, again, go into. But it's a very heavily regulated industry. It's an industry that we have great quality, but there's still a lot of unhappiness about both the cost and the access issues. In Massachusetts in particular, 1 in 4 the citizens of the Commonwealth have what we call Mass Health, which is Medicaid. And that's a pretty high percentage nationally.
Did you say 1 in 4?
1 in 4 citizens of the United States, sorry, Massachusetts. Yeah. And that's a very high percentage of citizenship for most states. It is representative, though, of some of the economic disparities. But it is also a budget buster from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts perspective, and they're very concerned about that. There are business initiatives to reduce inappropriate use of emergency departments. Great, Miss George here is a former emergency department nurse at Addison Gilbert. She understands that and testifies. And also Cindy's, we've come up with a unique solution about that, which Cindy will talk a little bit later. So there's a lot of different pressures on us, a lot of different pressures both nationally and in the state level, and also on us. And a lot of those pressures caused us to understand that we could not make it alone as an individual system, both at Addison, Gilbert, and Beverly back in the 2012 when we joined Leahy, and most subsequently, or recently rather, when we joined Beth Israel. In healthcare, size matters. It really does make a difference. Partially because the largest healthcare system in the state of Massachusetts, Partners, is so much bigger than everyone else to be able to effectively compete. And you want us to compete as healthcare, even though you think of it as a right. It has such a size advantage. Now we became, by virtue of our merger, the second most largest system in Massachusetts. It has advantages from an ability for us to afford infrastructure, for us to have expertise, specialists, but also in be able to serve our communities better, which is why we're very enthusiastic about it. We were wildly advantaged by the affiliation with Leahy, and we expect to be nothing but advantaged by the affiliation with Beth Israel. Also in your packet is some information. I think this was reported. But our new system joined in March 1st, so we're only about 3 months old here. We're not very old. But our motto is the right care, right place, right time. We're trying to keep appropriate care at local community hospitals, Addison, Gilbert, and Beverly being examples of those. Our system allows these individual hospitals to focus on appropriate expertise. We don't try to do everything at every location. It's both not economically viable, it's also not qualitatively viable. It's better to be able to focus on what we're good at. We coordinate care through the system, but most importantly, the motto of Beth Israel Leahy Health is to be able to make a difference in the lives of the patients that we serve. Also in your packet is, again, a distributed network. For those of you who are in the audience, it just shows that the reach of the new system, Beth Israel Leahy Health, goes from Cape Ann, or actually it goes from Newburyport, but it sounds better to say Cape Ann, down to almost to the border at Cape Cod with Plymouth. And that gives us both scale. It also gives us both geographic distribution, which is important if you're an employer and you're looking to direct contract. It also gives the citizens of Massachusetts 75% of the citizens of eastern Massachusetts within 5 miles of our primary care. We believe that's an advantage. Doesn't mean you have to use all of them, but you can use the one that's closest to you. And that's kind of a backdrop on us. We have been successful as an organization. We believe we will be very successful under the Beth Israel Leahy Health merger. And I'll turn it over to my counterpart, Cindy, here. And I'm sorry, I should have introduced myself by saying a little bit about how long I've been with the system. I apologize, and then you can talk about that. So I've been president since January of 2015, so about 4.5 years. But I was associated with the hospital from 1990 till about 2005. I left in 2005 and came back in 2012. So I have long association with Beverly and Addison Gilbert, and have a deep appreciation in particular for Addison Gilbert.
Great. Thank you. We're very fortunate to have Phil with us.
I'm sorry, I'm very fortunate to have Cindy with me.
Thanks.
This is a mutual admiration society. I hope you appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much. Addison Gilbert is really thriving. And the reason we're thriving is that we have evolved. Back in 94 and 95, when we were before we were an independent hospital, our leaders made the decision to merge with Beverly Hospital. That really started us on the road of survival, if you will. If we look 5-10 years ago, there were twice as many community hospitals in Massachusetts as there are now. We staff 46 beds at Addison Gilbert. That's very unusual to have a 46-bed hospital that's still surviving. And it's exactly because we utilize our system. We know what we should be doing at Addison Gilbert Hospital, and we do it very well. We have a fantastic team there. Ruthie, Barb McCarthy helps us from Beverly. We do about 3,000 inpatient and observation discharges every year. We see 14,600 emergency department visits. Our outpatient clinics, where we bring in specialists so that our Cape Ann residents don't have to leave Cape Ann in order to access specialist treatment, see about a little over 14,000 visits annually. Our physical and occupational therapy department sees over 25,000 visits a year, and radiology 28,000. So we are a busy little community hospital. We are bringing in, one of our focuses is to bring in specialists to Addison Gilbert Hospital, as I said, so people don't have to leave. In your package, you do have a list of the new services that we have brought in, including a new wound center at Addison Gilbert that just started, pain management, general surgery, bariatric surgery, sleep center, and we've also opened 2 new urgent care centers, one up at the Fuller School Rotary and the other in Danvers. Those are seeing 900 to 1,000 patients a month. So obviously, a month. Yep. So there was an obvious need for those, and they've ramped up faster than we expected.
And my kids utilize them.
I was gonna say, good. Well,
Is it okay to say thank you?
thank you.
Have you
Thank you.
have you found that the opening of those 2 clinics have drawn appropriately from the emergency rooms?
A bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Not to that extent. It's
Yeah.
not 1,000 patients a month. There are a few hundred patients in that semi-urgent category
Yeah,
who
yeah.
we are decanting, if you will, out of
Yeah.
our emergency departments,
Yeah.
which helps them, I
Right.
think, Ruthie.
Oh,
right?
absolutely,
Right? Yeah.
absolutely,
They're-
absolutely.
They are
Much
busy.
needed.
Yeah.
We predicted a drop in the emergency department volume, both at Beverly from the one in the one at Addison Gilbert from the one in Gloucester, and also at Beverly from the one in Danvers. And we have seen that drop, but it's an appropriate drop. Those patients potentially should not have been going to the emergency department in the first place. We look at how many of those patients who present to urgent care have to go to an emergency department on an emergent basis, and it's less than 1%, which means the patients are doing a very, very good job of selecting, I've got a minor condition, I can go to urgent care first, which is what you want.
Right.
Yeah. And in general, if you have private health insurance, is your copay less at urgent care?
Yes.
Than
Less
the
than
ER?
emergent,
It is.
much
Yes,
less than
much
emergent.
less,
Okay.
much less.
And our,
At our urgent cares, there are other urgent cares
Yes.
whose pricing is almost the same as an emergency department
Yes,
visit.
'cause
I won't,
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
one, so.
Yeah, no, I actually had a resident write to me and asking about that because they were in a situation where they were billed afterwards for a copay that was astronomical.
They're what called hospital-based urgent cares, which are more expensive, and ours are what's called freestanding. Even though they're affiliated with us, we don't charge hospital rates. We charge urgent care rates, and therefore they're less. We thought that was the right thing to do
Yeah.
and the right approach.
Yeah, great.
thank you. I also put a list in of the other specialty services that we offer. We specialize in, cancer services, cardiology with Dr. Michael Arseni, and this whole other list. We also specialize in geriatric care. We have a senior adult unit that takes care of frail, elderly patients with both medical and behavioral health issues. So it's a unique model. All of our clinics, Toby, are accept all insurances. So anything happening within our buildings, which is what we control really, it accepts all insurances. If you ever have an issue, just give me a call, okay? Thank you. One last thing, another focus that we have is reaching outside of our hospital. There's a real focus on social determinants of health. You've probably heard that term. When we were sitting a few years ago in our multidisciplinary rounds, talking about sending patients home and what services they needed, what I kept hearing was, we know they're going to be back in a week. Well, we needed to reach outside of our hospital walls to get out in the community with our patients, and we did that. We got a grant, several grants from the Health Policy Commission to establish teams, which we now support, to go out into the community, into patients' homes, into the shelters, into the municipal buildings, wherever the patients are, we meet them. We help them to develop strategies to keep them out of the hospital and keep them as well as possible. We also have a neonatal abstinence syndrome team that helps moms and babies who are addicted to opiates, both before birth and after birth, and we follow those dyads for 18 months. So that's been tremendously successful. And also along that line of social determinants of health, we're working with another team on supporting those patients who come into our emergency departments who have an addiction to opiates, and perhaps they've overdosed, perhaps they just walk in, they need help, we can give them the first dose of medication to start detoxing them right in the emergency room, and then give them an appointment to follow up in the Bridge clinics of Leahy Behavioral Health next day. So we're pretty proud of that. We're on the cutting edge. Our teams actually have been imitated across the Commonwealth.
Cindy's modest. She's the one who applied for these grants, was able successful in getting the grants, and is recognized by the Health Policy Commission, which is a state agency that does these grants, as the superior outcomes that we have on that. And most importantly, when those grants expired, we continue to fund those programs because we see the benefit of them.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Just one last thing. We've talked about volume, we've talked about we're financially secure. One thing that we are the most proud of is our quality. Throughout Beverly and Addison Gilbert hospitals, we are recognized nationwide for the quality of care that we deliver. The Leapfrog Group is an independent organization that uses objective published data, not votes. Like, I don't want to diss U.S. News and World Report, but this is
But you just
actual
did.
facts. Right. So they use actual facts to rate hospitals. Addison Gilbert and Beverly hospitals have been straight A's since this was initiated in 2012, and only 41 hospitals in the whole country have attained that. So we're very, very proud. We have fantastic teams there. You can see on your program on your PowerPoint, we are premier maternity sites at Beverly Hospital on the North Shore. Actually, within the whole state, we're one of the highest, have the highest volume of births in the state. Not the highest, but one of the highest.
North Shore.
Oh, all right.
You got 4 of mine.
We did.
All 4 of
Yeah,
them.
that's awesome.
We do have openings next week.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm all set with that one now.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, over 2,200 births annually. We do the 5th or 6th highest in orthopedic surgery in Eastern Massachusetts. We're trauma certified at both sites, Addison Gilbert and Beverly, and we're actually gold certified at Addison Gilbert and at Beverly. So that's the highest level of certification. And we do life-saving angioplasty at Beverly Hospital. We have a process in place to get you from Addison Gilbert Emergency Department to Beverly within the time period, door to balloon time we call it. And also we have children's hospital physicians at Beverly Hospital.
So I talked earlier about it's important for us to specialize and to be able to do things very, very well. And in healthcare in particular, quantity equals quality in a lot of cases, unfortunately. So these are our specialty areas. We like to consider themselves as maternity, orthopedics, behavioral health, and also cardiology, or what we like to say is bones, babies, behavioral health, and beating hearts. That's our motto.
He's the wordsmith.
Yeah.
So
See if you can remember that later. Probably.
So thank you very much. If there's anything that you can all do for us, it's to use Addison Gilbert for the services that are
And that was
offered
going to be
there.
my question: is what can we
Thank
do?
you.
Honestly,
Thank
to
you, Sarah.
Yeah.
And use the Beth Israel Leahy system for services that are offered within the system that are not at Addison Gilbert or Beverly. And if you can support us philanthropically, I can't say that word, any donations to Addison Gilbert Hospital stay at Addison Gilbert Hospital, and we appreciate it. Every little bit makes a huge difference for us. So we're open to questions if you have any.
If you don't mind. I remember, thank you for coming, both of you. I remember a few years ago when the presentation was made that there was a concern in Rockport for Addison Gilbert that people bypass Addison Gilbert to go to Beverly Hospital because it's a bigger place and so forth, and that was causing problems. Have you seen that uptick, or is it the same, or is it
No, was
still a
that
problem?
that the ambulances were bypassing?
Well, just a
or was it
lot
in
of people.
general?
There was a concern that people thought they would get better care and be quicker at Beverly Hospital, when
Yeah.
in fact,
And I think it's
it's
just
the opposite. you
Yeah,
know.
I think it's proven that that happened for a very short time, and then I think people locally in Rockport and Gloucester realized that the wait time was less at Addison Gilbert. You were in and out quicker. If you needed to be admitted, you were admitted to Addison or transferred if it was necessary. And the wait times at Beverly were very long because they're servicing a very big geographic area. I mean, they have Topsfield, Boxford, Beverly, Salem, Danvers, every place. So when I was still working, we were having a lot of people come from Manchester and Essex coming to Addison. It was a quicker visit, and the ER physicians are the exact same doctors. They rotate from place to place. So you were seeing the same physicians, and it was a quicker turnaround time, got the same care. So I think that's changed. I think that's
Good.
very
I
busy.
remember that was a legitimate
Yeah.
concern.
Thanks. One of the services on here that you place a high importance on, and rightfully so, is the addiction services. And I'd be curious to know, do you have any statistical data available on the addiction services, and obviously without violating HIPAA laws and things like that, but to see if there's an uptick, if there's any trending going on within communities that may be adversely affected by things like this? Is that available at all?
So we may not be experts, but I do know just from reading some material lately that certainly there are certain communities that suffer greater from the substance abuse addiction or epidemic, and Gloucester is one of them. I do know Salem is another one, and it varies, but it's not just cities, it's towns, it's everywhere. Unfortunately, it's prevalent no matter what, and certainly. But one of the things is I think the Discover program at Addison Gilbert dates from the 80s, I think, or 1980s. So we were trying to treat addiction back in the 1980s before it ever became, I don't mean the word popular, but before it ever became that's where hospitals should put some of their resources. We can kind of get you that data if you want, but we do see pockets of prevalence of that. The state grants that they gave us, though, wasn't necessarily because of that. It was really because of our expertise and the skill sets of our clinicians, and so that they could use those models to go to places where there was other opportunities to do that.
Good. Thank you.
Just one comment. I just came from the Council on Aging meeting, and they mentioned that Addison Gilbert donated, I think, $20,000 to a Mass in Motion grant to supplement the $84,000 from the state, which will be used for transportation for seniors. So thank you for that.
Great. Oh, you're welcome. Very welcome. Thank you.
We do have, as part of our community benefits, we do provide a lot of services, whether they're free blood pressure clinics or different things like that. But we also give grants to charitable organizations who apply for funding within our geography that we serve for causes that we believe might help the well-being and wellness of our communities. So thank you for that recognition.
And at the other end of the spectrum, I will say that I have had 2 babies in the past few years at Beverly. Could not speak highly enough about the maternity services.
Oh, that's very kind.
Partially because, I mean, I have friends who, and obviously no judging for where people choose to have babies, but who go to Boston, and how personal, and it's just a different experience at Beverly, and could not speak highly enough. In fact, and the other positive is that now I have 2 young kids who play sports, so we find ourselves at the Beverly ER often, and the children's physicians that come in, are just outstanding. Like, you leave there, with a small child, obviously traumatic, but they could not be any nicer, and it really, you wouldn't even know that they're from Children's. You know what I mean? They fit in, they work so well with the nurses, and we have, knock on wood, so far had all really positive experiences.
Great. Well, we hope we don't have any more emergency department experiences.
My oldest birthday is 1100, so he was born on the millennium. The doctor was hysterical, was going from room to room to catch New Year's Eve in different time zones because they were playing at different times. It was just really funny. But the point with that is they were so friendly and nice. And you have such a great staff there on the neonatal side. It was amazing. It really was.
It's very kind. We'll convey your.
Please do.
Please do, because I feel like they don't hear it enough. You know what I mean?
Right.
They definitely don't hear
They're
it.
personal. They're not.
Yeah.
It's not. You're not a number. You felt like you were you were being attended to.
Yeah,
It's
and a
really
lot
nice
of
to
them
hear.
live on the North Shore as well,
do.
so,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. So anyway.
I just think, one thing, a lot of people think they have to go to Beverly for a colonoscopy, and Addison Gilbert does colonoscopies with certain doctors come out to Addison Gilbert.
Fun fact.
I know, fun fact, everyone needs to have
In case
one.
anyone needs to
but,
know.
But, you know,
In
they
case
are,
anybody's
they do
looking.
come out local. And,
Those
and,
of us who are a certain age bracket, it is just
Yeah,
is
you
a
got
fact
it.
of life.
and
I'm
the
good
other
for
thing
the
too
next
is
10
that,
years.
that
You have to leave.
ambulatory clinics at Addison Gilbert has multiple specialties, pulmonary, dietary, eye physicians.
And they take
or-
all insurance.
And they
as
take
we
all
just learned.
insurances.
Right.
And I think Cindy's brought some lists of what all the services are up there. And, you know, people can
Great.
call and check and see what's available, but there's lots of different specialties available at Addison Gilbert.
Great, yeah. I
Thank
mean,
you,
this is
Ruth.
helpful, and honestly, if even a few people watch or are here tonight and learn something
Yep,
from that, it's really
absolutely.
helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
One more comment. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I'm at the hospital a lot with my mother, who's 90 years old.
I'm sorry
And
to hear
she,
that.
well, no, she gets great
loves
care.
it, doesn't
Yeah,
she?
no,
She's a
she's
star.
the only one I know that really enjoys. Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
But she gets great care, and in fact, she was released from the hospital this morning.
Oh.
And one of the nurses brought her in flowers, and they're like, "Bye, Kay," and they're giving her a hug, and it's
Appropriately so, we did not know that. So
Yeah,
I just want you to I want to reassure you, well, that's,
Yeah, another Rockporter.
But you know, we always go right
Thank
to
you.
Addison Gilbert, and the few times that she's had to be transferred to Beverly, that's fine too.
but that's the way our system should work. If
Yeah.
we, you know, come to the closest emergency department if you have an emergency room, and then we'll triage you or assess you and put you in the part of our system with it's most appropriate for the
Yeah.
level of care. And that's what you want. You
Right.
want us to be able to
Yeah.
make that decision. That's what Ruth did for a career for, I won't say how many years, but a long time. So.
Yeah, definitely. Mitch, do you have anything else to add?
We're thrilled that you're able to join us.
Yeah, thank
Yep.
you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Appreciate the opportunity
And
to do
please
that.
keep us in mind if there's anything else that, you know,
If we can
we
do
as
to
a
help
town
you.
can do
Well-
specifically to help you.
Please keep us in mind if you need services. whether it's a colonoscopy or a baby, just keep us in mind.
That's not enticing, but thank you.
Nice to see you both.
It'd be a
Thank
miracle
you.
for me to have a baby.
Right,
so
yeah,
much.
right.
Okey-doke. Busy night. Okay. Keep moving. I believe the police chief is here with some interviews. I just want to make sure if there are people, are in the back row, you guys waiting here for something specific? Yeah, for the police interviews. Okay, cool. So I don't like, if somebody's waiting for something at the very end, I don't like to make them sit through the whole. But nice to have you here. Good evening, Chief. We're ready for you.
We've got quite the lineup. We had to add an extra chair on the end there for everybody, so. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank
Nice
you
to
for your
see you
time. Great to see you as well. I'm here to offer up 3 candidates for your consideration for 2 full-time police officer positions. You should recognize all 3 of these gentlemen because we've sat before you several times already, but I'll do a brief intro just to make sure the audience is aware of who we have. So we have Officer Dan Cashman. Dan is a Beverly resident. He graduated in 2015 from Merrimack College. He's been with us since 2017 as a reserve police officer and a full-time dispatcher since 2018. Next to him is Officer Nick Scatterday. Nick is a lifelong Rockport resident. He graduated as a reserve police officer in 2018 and has been working in that capacity with us. And he's a 2018 graduate of Salem State University with a degree in criminal justice. And on the end, last but not least, is Officer John Clifford. John commutes in from Quincy every day. He has his sights set on the North Shore, assuming sooner than later for future residents. He's been a reserve police officer with us since 2017, and he's been a full-time civilian dispatcher with us since probably about 3 months now. So I can say with utmost confidence, you're not going to find 3 finer young officers that represent our police department to the highest standards. All 3 of these gentlemen are extremely hardworking, very respectful, and I don't say that about everybody, but I can certainly say that with great confidence for these 3 individuals. So I'm very confident they're going to do an outstanding job when given the opportunity. I think they've done that. They've proved it to a degree already, and I'm looking forward to what what they can provide us in the years to come. So with that, I turn them over to you, unless you have questions for me.
Great. Any questions for the chief? I feel like we just interviewed them for.
I know.
I know, and they just
We're
look
all just
younger and
here.
younger.
They do, yes.
I think it's more that we're looking older and older, unfortunately. Question.
And see how quick it's come up. I mean, before you like second or third or fourth in line, and now you're 1, 2, and 3. So
That's right.
great turnout. Great to get you up here.
Yeah.
With these appointments, we would be at full capacity?
That's correct. Currently, we have 10 full-time officers. Making these two will get us up to 12, which is our our full-time operating strength of 12 officers. So
And
yes,
then you'll continue this process with intermittents?
exactly. We'll hire additional permanent intermittent officers to help with budget, obviously. But that's also the pool of officers, obviously, that we go to when we hire full-time officers. So it's a great program, if you will, because it gives us the opportunity to see if they're right for the department, but it also gives them the opportunity to see if the job is right for them without investing in a full-time employee. So it's worked out very well for us, obviously.
Yeah, that model has worked so well. I mean, I remember when I was first on the board, and oftentimes people would be appointed as permanent intermittents, but wouldn't ever work the hours. So
Yeah, you did
the
get to
chief
know them.
wasn't getting a good view of what the officers were.
Have you guys worked the hours?
I was going to say, I think I talk
worked
to
the
all
hours.
3 of these guys
Yeah.
all the time, so I'm pretty.
They've worked enough for probably 5 or 6 people, to be honest with you. So yes, they've done a fantastic job.
Yeah.
It's a nice way of training the police officers to become full-time police officers, and gets an opportunity for the town to see if they are appropriate and vice versa. So,
Right.
you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When does the academy class start?
So the next academy class is in Reading, and it's November 4th. It's Monday, November 4th. So
Oh, wintertime class. That's fun running
Yeah.
in the snow and everything. Oh, jeez.
yeah, they're looking forward to it.
I'm sure they are.
Questions for them?
Does their appointment start now or then?
So there'll be 2 appointment dates. So Officer
appointments.
Cashman will be appointed effective Sunday, if you so choose as a board, and then Officer Scatterday will not be appointed until Sunday, November 3rd. And the reason for that is state guidelines, MPTC guidelines for certifications. An officer needs to be out of the academy for a year, reserve academy, before they can be appointed full-time. So if we appointed Nick now, he'd lose his police powers, and he wouldn't even be able to function as a reserve officer for us. So we're going to appoint him right the day before the academy starts, so we don't lose his ability, or he doesn't lose his ability to be a police officer for us in the interim.
Okay, and then in the meantime, Officer Clifford would be in the queue, so to say.
He's in the queue, that's correct.
Is that a good way to put
Yeah,
it?
and he's working for us full-time as a
Right.
civilian dispatcher right now, so
Exactly. Right, which is
we're
great.
getting
And the
many
reserves
hours.
that we just talked about the last time, that backfills these positions, so everything stays at full complement? Are you, once they start, what happens to the reserves?
Yeah, we're still trying to play catch-up, so we have 2 reserve officers that are in the final stages of their hiring process and training. One already has the reserve academy, which is great. The other one needs the reserve academy. So those 2 will be hitting the ground running, if you will, a little bit quicker. And then on the backside of that, Sergeant Mahoney's here. He does a lot of our background investigations. We have 3 that are in the background process now. Whether or not they can survive that background process is another story. We're very, very, very particular on who we hire here, because I want to make sure that they're right for the community and they're right for this job. So if that doesn't happen, then we go back to the drawing board for a new list of reserves.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Officer Clifford, how are you doing this
I
Quincy
was
commute?
just going to ask the same
Well, it's
question.
kind of reverse.
A lot of off hours, so
Right.
it's all the rush hour traffic.
And it's kind of reverse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I'm coming, everyone's going the other way and vice versa.
Where in Quincy do you live? Whereabouts?
Right near Walston Beach.
Oh, okay, my brother.
Too bad you can't take a boat.
Yeah. And John, weren't you the one who came back to us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. It's great to have
Yeah.
you back.
We're happy to have
Yeah,
him.
it's great to have you back.
Good.
I have Officer Cashman. I didn't realize that you were assistant harbor master in Beverly.
Yes, so this is my 5th summer down.
Yeah, I
being
don't know why I
harbor
must have
master in
missed
Beverly.
that.
Yeah.
Do Scott and Rosemary know that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
They've tried to get me out on the boat a few times.
Okay, I was gonna say. But that's super, super helpful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Honestly,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, I love it.
Beverly's probably quieter than Rockport, like on the water.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
We have our days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fantastic.
Other questions?
No.
I've asked all I need, I'm good
Yeah.
with everything.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the chief and the department, you guys do such an excellent job, kind of recruiting, bringing bringing everyone up. I honestly have gotten nothing but compliments about the department
Absolutely.
and the officers, all of them,
Yep.
and like lately, and it's just such a nice,
Yep.
it's, a, you know, all because of you guys and what you're
Yep.
creating, the
Yep.
department you're creating, and it's something that the whole town is proud of,
Yep. Sure.
honestly.
We'll pass it along. Thank you.
Yeah.
And they're very visible out around and walking around and out in the
Yes.
cruises and everything.
Yeah, they take all my calls, as crazy as they are. Officer Scatterday took one Saturday from me when I was at the field with a lot of kids around, and there were concerned people, but he was professional, dealt with it right away. And honestly, it's kind of what, you know, run of the mill for you guys now, dealing with my craziness. But, you know, sometimes, and I've said this to you before, Chief, sometimes people are nervous to call the police directly. You know, like my sweet 85-year-old neighbor who calls me before he calls the ambulance, and I'm always like, 911 is better than calling my cell.
Yep.
But, you know, so sometimes residents come to us for help with police matters, and we obviously direct them right to you guys, but could not be smoother or more professional, the whole department, so.
Yeah, the goal is, I've had the pleasure and the challenge of working in communities in the past that weren't necessarily very trusting of the police. So,
Yeah.
so the strategy I used back then was, listen, as a community member, you don't have to like me, you don't even have to know me. All I ask is that you know one police officer in the department that you feel a connection to, that you can call if you've got a question or a concern. It doesn't have to be the dispatcher, it can be an individual officer. So being in such a close-knit community like Rockport, where the community really has, an admiration for our officers, that's not an issue here. So everybody kind of knows at least one person. If it doesn't happen to be me, they know somebody else in the department that they can call and get a good response from.
Yeah, I mean, just a quick anecdote. I had someone on Facebook like last weekend say an issue, and I said, please call the police immediately. And they wrote back to me like, really? Is that really what you would do? And I was like, well, I would have actually already called the police. But,
please.
and they did, and it worked out. But it's interesting, the people who, that in some communities that people are so distrusting of the police that they would go on Facebook as opposed to call police for a police issue. But that's a whole nother discussion. We're just lucky that that we trust you here and are so proud of you.
Good.
So thank you.
Would you like a motion?
I would.
It's easy.
Here we go. I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Daniel Cashman as a full-time police officer effective June 23, 2019.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Comment? No. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I
And-
have to abstain because my nephew is a police officer.
Okay, and then are you abstaining?
I'm
from
abstaining on the next one because
Okay.
I went to the prom with Nick's mother.
There's a shocker.
Always the Rockport connection, Mr. Murphy.
Whoa. And now the
just-
follow-up, and she is now your
Sister-in-law.
sister.
There you go.
Just keep it in the family. All in the family as this group
Rockport
goes.
with it.
This
Just
is
keep
small,
on coming.
Yeah.
Small town at its best, right?
Yep.
Tonight, we learned who Paul went to the prom with, and that you can get a colonoscopy at Addison. It doesn't get much
What more could you
better.
ask for?
Things.
There you go.
Or what?
Information.
What more could you ask
What more
for?
could
Right.
we ask
Life is
for?
good.
Okay, second motion.
There we go. I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Nicholas Scatterday as a full-time police officer effective November 3rd, 2019.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
I'm staying.
Two
I
abstentions.
have to abstain.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. The motion carries. Congratulations. Officer Clifford, you can shake our hands too, just because you're in the queue. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Serve as well as I know you will.
Congratulations. Thanks for helping me
Serve as well
solve
as I
that.
know you will. Thank you.
Good job, Nick.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much, Chief.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.
Madam Chair, just one quick note while the chief is here, before he goes. I know we have two other items for the police that are on this evening, and we'll get to those then, but the dispatcher is our standard process. The lifeguards, I sat in on the lifeguard orientation session for a bit yesterday, and it was excellent. The chief and Sergeant Boudreaux did a fantastic job. I just want to commend them on that excellent process. We have a great group of people this year.
Great.
We've struggled in years
Do we
past
have
to
the
get
right
enough.
number? You know this is like a pet peeve of my soft spot.
And with potentially two more.
Really?
Up to our capacity.
Interesting how
Yep.
we had so much
Wow.
trouble last year.
Great.
Did a lot more outreach.
Yeah.
So it paid off.
Oh, great. That's exciting. That's exciting.
How many applicants did you have, Chief? Did you?
13 or 14. We hopefully hired 12.
Nice.
How many did we have last summer? 7? Something?
7, and I think we ended up hiring 5.
Yeah.
State.
Crazy. Huh. Okay.
That's great.
Thank
you.
Are you staying here till we vote on those, or because
He doesn't need to stay.
I was going to say you don't have to stay for those. No,
he
no, I was
doesn't
going
need
to
to
tell
stay.
you you didn't need to. No, I was going to tell you you didn't need to. I'm sure you've worked a long day. Thank you. Okay. Okie doke. Next, Building Study Committee. Welcome, Monica. Do you want to bring everyone up here and introduce everyone? Should have taken a break. You know, let's take just a 1-minute break and let Mitch set the TV up. You guys can take seats. Anybody can get a drink if they want.
And I'm chair of the Building Study Committee, and with me today at the table, we have Kate Johns Shaw, who is an architect, and you will see more about that a little bit later, a member of our committee. Jeff Juveler, the vice chair of the committee. Rich Souza, who is the deputy DPW director, member of the committee, and Mitch Vieira across the room serves also on the committee. So we are here today to give you an update on the work we've been doing over the past several months. We appeared here before you at the end of February, and we're really just getting started in our whole process of trying to figure out what we're supposed to do. And since that time, we've made quite a lot of progress on several fronts, and we did provide you with a packet of information and a written report. I don't know if you've had a chance to review it, but we'll go over it to some extent for the benefit of people in the room who are here to learn a little bit more. And then, of course, certainly feel free to interrupt at any time with questions, and I would ask people on the committee to feel free at any time to jump in with any comments or observations that we may have overlooked. I'll start it off by giving an update primarily on the work we've been doing around the DPW facility, and Kate will take over to talk about some of the plans and recommendations we have with respect to other town buildings in which she has played a very prominent role, as you'll see. So just to get started, just to kind of recap or put this in context, the building study was initially formed back in the fall to address or to pick up where the 2015 Building Study Committee left off, and to take a look at all town buildings and the needs of the town as a whole, and to address the deficiencies and the needs for updates and all of that. But I think we all knew at the time that the impetus for setting up the committee was the very urgent need for a new DPW facility. We did not set up a separate committee to deal with that. We wanted to first start with a general committee that would take a look at the DPW facility in a larger context, taking a look at the needs of the town and not just the needs of the DPW, because there was a strong desire to ensure that any new facility that gets built is going to serve the larger needs of the town while at the same time providing what the DPW needs. So our first order of business and our first challenge really was to try to figure out, well, what does the town need? And we thought the best way to go about that was to talk to the various managers of all of the town departments, to hear directly from them what their needs are in their operations and what the deficiencies are of the space that they're working in now. So I think when we came before you in February, we had just finished the process of conducting interviews of, I think, 12 different town departments, all of the departments in this building, the annex, and the central fire and ambulance facility across the street. And we had a very methodical process of focusing our questions on several different areas in order to get some sense of the adequacy of the space, the physical condition, their storage needs, the meeting and conference room space, the break rooms and restrooms, and the effectiveness of the space in terms of providing good public service to the residents of the town. So based on these interviews, we did confirm absolutely that there are deficiencies in all of the buildings. None of them are perfect, in fact, far from it. And their deficiencies take all forms: physical condition, cramped space, sometimes just age and inefficiency of the windows and HVAC system, the roof, etc. But at the same time, we reached a very important conclusion with respect to the DPW facility, in that we did not find any compelling reason for any non-DPW departments to move to the new DPW facility in order to provide a relief valve for the existing space. So there was some very preliminary discussion at one time. Should we be moving Concom? Should we be moving Planning Board? Should we be moving the building inspector and the related departments up there? We did not see any compelling reason for that, because once the DPW in whole or in part moves out of this building, it provides an opportunity for expansion for the departments who most need the space. And we also felt, even if we want to keep some of DPW on campus, we can do that by doing some rearranging of space in the town annex, which is quite inefficient in its use of space at the present time. So we will talk about those plans a little bit later. But in short, the departments that need more space would be able to get it once DPW moves, and the departments that make most sense to move to a new DPW facility don't need more space. So we couldn't find a compelling reason to add a second floor. And so we backed off on that right from the get-go. And so from that point, once we'd made that decision, we really started to work in parallel to examine very closely the plans that had been put forward initially for the DPW facility, or the most recent plans, I should say, in 2016, to take a look at those very closely and ask the hard questions. And then on a separate track, to take a look at what we could do in the 3 campus buildings to make improvements that were determined to be necessary back in 2015, and to try to come up with a plan, a long-range plan, not necessarily an immediate plan, but a plan for changes that would be feasible and viable and realistic. So that's what we've been doing for the past couple of months. With respect to the DPW facility, as I said, we started by pulling out all of the old plans, inviting Weston and Sampson to come in and provide an updated presentation on the facility and the configuration of it and the cost of it. They did that in the early part of February, early March, which was after we had met with you. So we had not yet talked with Weston and Sampson at that time. They gave us quite basically they reworked the presentation that they had done last year sometime in an updated fashion. And we looked at that. We shared it with the Finance Committee at the time. And then we decided, well, we need to delve a little bit deeper. We didn't want to take it just at face value. Here's the plan, let's go for it. Because really within our committee, we had a high degree of skepticism, because the initial reaction among some of us in the committee, just as the initial reaction of people in the town, is, why does it cost so much? Do we really need to do this Isn't there some way, couldn't we renovate the building? Couldn't we add on to it to get the space we want? What would be involved in renovating the building? Now, I'm sure the DPW and the commissioners went through this similar exercise initially, but we hadn't, and before we could come before you with any kind of recommendation, we really felt we had to have a better understanding of what the constraints and the challenges of that building and the building site are. So we went back and forth with Weston and Sampson with detailed emails over the course of a month and a half, and Joe, you were in the loop on those, and Rich, et cetera. And as we delved into it, we basically came down to 3 options. And the first option would be to stick with the very earliest plans that were developed, which was for an even larger building. It was a 30,000 square foot building that was generous with space for vehicle storage, perhaps had better finishes to it, etc. That had been eliminated very early on by the DPW and the commissioners because they recognized the sticker shock of an even larger building. So they had really already gone through the process of trying to trim it down, scale it down to the basic, I don't want to say the bare minimum, but basically the essentials that DPW really needs. And that turns out to be the plan that was put forward in 2016, updated in 2018, for essentially a 24,000 square foot building. We also, as I said, decided to examine the current facility. Now, we all know what it looks like, but do we really understand what the deficiencies are? And as we grilled Weston and Sampson on what it would take to bring that building up to code, to bring the site up to code, to maybe add on a building that would provide additional space for indoor vehicles, it was just mind-boggling, really, because the building is bad in so many ways. Every system in that building is bad. It is in compliance with nothing as far as codes are concerned, whether you're talking about the HVAC system, the electrical system, the ventilation system, the fire suppression system, the drainage system, the pollutant control system. Every system, when there is a system, and it's missing some key systems, it's just not in compliance with code. The site itself and the ground under it needs remediation at this point. You could conceivably beef up and renovate that building, but you'd be changing everything, and the structure of it needs work as well. And if you were to try to reconfigure it for office space and the things you need in there, it would have to be up to code, and it then would diminish the space you have for storage. And trying to stick a building onto it as an addition would be just kludging two inefficient buildings together, because you really need an integrated whole in order to have the kind of flow and efficiency of layout that you want. So the costs of taking that building, trying to bring it up to code and add on to it to get the storage you need. You might even need to make it larger in order to make up for the awkward spacing. Calculating it out as best we could, we were going to be going well over the cost of just ripping it down and building it new from the ground up. It's very hard to put exact numbers to it because you would have to spend another $30,000 for a very detailed engineering study and plans in order to take that building and figure out if and how you could fix it and add on to it. And that just doesn't seem to be a good use of money at this point in time. So that is, we thought was option 3, and we're still back to option 2, which was the plan that was really settled upon in over the past couple of years. The process was very informative, though, as Mitch puts up here, showing
Monica,
here now.
I think we all.
You saw that.
Well, yeah, I think
we
we
all
all
read
read
Okay.
the report, so you can kind of skim a little bit just
All right.
because we've.
So,
yeah.
let's see. I think we all know what the benefits of a new facility. We really feel, this would get us what we need for the next 50 years. We would not be compromising at all in terms of the quality.
That number is so important. 50 years is a long time.
It's a long time, and it's not going to fall down in 50 years.
Yeah.
It is most likely, with the proper care and attention, there's no reason it couldn't last longer than that. If we could make this one last for 63, I'm sure the next one could last longer as well. There would be some cost savings in our vehicle replacement costs, et cetera. So all things considered, we felt it was pretty much a unanimous decision to go with option 2, the original plan. We did feel that there could be we did look at some enhancements to it, and we really felt very strongly that one enhancement is absolutely essential, and that is to take the open canopy storage area on the east end of the building and fit it out as office space for DPW administration. And we felt the entire space should be readied for the entire DPW operation, which is not to say that you have to move the whole operation there on day one, but you want to have the flexibility to do that if at some point in time it becomes desirable for some reason. And any space that may not be used initially will not go to waste. We all know nature abhors a vacuum. And if nothing else, it might be used temporarily as meeting space. We have a great need for conference room space in the town, and although our plans call for quite a few new areas of space, we're not going to get that immediately. So I think we feel it would be in the best interests of the town to set that whole space up as office and or meeting space to serve the long-term needs of the town. We also felt, and this is subject to review, I think, that it could be beneficial to shift the building to the west, which is further down Nugent Stretch, in order to open up the passageways between the building and the police station and water plant campus to provide more room for moving around and parking, etc. Our committee felt that was the thing to do. It maybe needs closer examination because there's ledge there and it needs to be evaluated. But our cost estimate does include that as an add-on. We looked at several other enhancements that you'll see on the sheet, but we felt those could wait for another time. So if you saw the, Mitch, maybe you want to put up the summary of building options, if you have that document. And the first option, which was for the original 30,000 square foot, that would come in today at $14.5 million. And the reduced program, which we're calling option 2, with the administrative space and the shifting of the building, would come in approximately $12,225,000. Renovating and adding on gets you somewhere in the between 13.5 and 14 million. So needless to say, we eliminated that right away. If you want to delve into those figures a little bit, just to let you know that it's there, we do have the total breakdown of costs from Weston and Sampson that go into great detail on how we arrive at that 12 million and change figure. And our committee even took it a step further and developed a more detailed spreadsheet, because I personally wanted to know, when they talk about a line item for general conditions being 9% of direct costs, I wanted to know how they got that figure. They just said general conditions 9%. Well, 9% of what? They had all these percentages, and I wanted to know 9% of what. It wasn't 9% of 12 million. So we wanted to understand the figures, and that's what, you have this in your packet, and it really goes into it in exhaustive detail. So let's see, I think we have covered most of the key points of the presentation with respect to the DPW facility, the costs, our rationale on the administration, et cetera. So did we miss anything?
Are there any questions?
Yes, other than, next thing. Any questions?
I have one, and it
Mhm.
was an important one, and I can't find the number. What was the percentage and cost-wise of the mandated code things that we have
Yes,
to do? 'Cause
yeah.
that's a really
That's
big
that's a good question. That's what one of the things we were grilling Weston and Sampson on, because when you look at the floor plans, a large percentage of it are spaces that are mandated. For example, the wash bays and the fluid storage areas and the egress, and I don't have the plans in front of me right now, but there's a lot of, bottom line, at least I would say half of the building, both the spaces and the systems, are mandated by the codes. We don't have any options. And honestly, I think it's probably more than that, because every system that you're talking about in the building is mandated by code. Now, the vehicle storage area is, you have flexibility there, and that's kind of a large space, so that would not be in the mandated by code. But at least 50% of the cost is,
well, except that the fire suppression
yeah,
systems
you've got
and
fire
the-
suppression systems. So I think it's, we think it's very conservative to say that much of the cost is mandated by code. And another interesting figure that is not in any of your materials that I think is helpful to know, because that helps to explain why it's so expensive. Of course, there is a memo in there, cost drivers, that Weston and Sampson put together. But if you look at the average square foot cost of commercial and public construction versus the average per square foot cost of residential construction, there is a huge difference. We looked at that the other day, and I'm sorry I didn't bring the figures with me, but it was like $535 per square foot for a commercial / public average in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, residential was, I want to say, around 150.
I think it's 200.
Oh, right, 200.
It was somewhere
Yep.
between 150
Yep.
and 200.
Big gulf.
More than double.
And if you take the square footage of our proposed building and you multiply it out by that Massachusetts average, you're coming pretty close. It's a little over 12,
exactly.
yeah, 12, between 12 and 13 million. So that is the reality. That's not, that's the average in Massachusetts. There's no way you're going to get around that. There is no way we can build this building cheaper. It just can't be done. And get the building that we need. There is no point to cutting down the space for the storage of vehicles, because the statistics show the more vehicles you can put inside and have ready access to them in the wintertime, they're going to start up faster, they're going to serve you better, and they're going to cost less over the course of time. We do have some figures on that, but we have to not massage, we have to tighten up those numbers. So I don't want to promise particular savings. We have to make sure we get those numbers right.
Monica, if you don't mind, first of all, thank you for the depth and the detail that you folks have put into this. It's fantastic. It really is. In an endeavor like this, where there's so much money involved and so much, so many questions from the community, it really helps to define the project in a way that makes it easy for everybody to understand and see what the real costs are. So to go to the community side of it, I have a few questions, but my first one is, what was the level of community input that you got to determine what services should be moved to a new facility as opposed to stay here at Town Hall?
Well, we did not do any public presentations, and really weren't in a position to do that because a lot of what we're doing, we wanted to bring to the selectmen, and with respect to our plans for the other buildings, we wanted to bring it to the all management group before going out to the community. It seems really the leaders of the town need to be informed before we start going out to the community.
So I guess what would the plan be for that to move forward? I'm sure there's a component you have to bring that out to the public, because the services that the DPW provides, permitting and all these different things that they do, it's vast. The convenience of those services, whether they are here, and people want to walk. The people who live around here want to walk right to Town Hall. They don't want to forego that, and to have to drive up to a.
No, the
I don't.
plan is to keep those at the end.
So-
That's
Keep
my
it
question.
planned.
That's what I'm getting.
You'll see.
This is
Yeah.
what we are recommending. You build out the space. However, we understand what the differing views are with respect to moving
That's my
departments.
point, right.
And if you were to just to look at it blindly without the community needs, you would say, move everybody up there. That's the efficient thing to do. That's what most communities do. And that would certainly make it easier to find more space for the departments that need it. But we understand that there is a strong desire to keep services on the central campus. So our recommendation at this time is to move the DPW operations, the engineering department, the deputy director, and the GIS person up to the new facility, and to keep the office staff and the permitting operation on the central campus. That's our recommendation for the short term.
And
Oh,
just-
and shouldn't even say for the immediate,
Yeah, and just to add on that, the director would have space in both locations
Yes.
to address that. And we did spend a lot of time discussing, based on what we see every day in the building, on needs for the citizens coming in. So for example, a lot of times somebody will come in with a question about their water bill, for example. They'll show up at the treasurer's office ready to pay it or have a question on it. We have to refer them to the DPW office, but they then get that question answered. They need to then go back to the treasurer's office. So there's that functionality that the campus provides for those services, and knowing that it's important that there's space in both for the director to have to go between, but getting operations and engineering.
And that's that we were looking to the model of Monty Hischler, I think, who. Yeah, he's in the schools, he's at the town annex. So that's what we want to do for Joe, have a space where he can camp and have an operating office space in both facilities. And honestly, we were even thinking about the new facility, if it has a training room, a muster room or whatever, that would provide a good space for those opportunities where the DPW would want to have an all-hands-on-deck meeting for everyone, including the office staff, who could go up there to be part of a gathering.
Kate, did you do these plans for the annex?
Yes.
And it's amazing. It's so, it seems so smooth. I have no imagination for, let alone obviously architectural skills, but I have had trouble the past few years even envisioning what could work. Does that make sense? But I honestly think that keeping the DPW on campus, but it just all seems to kind of fall into place.
So
And the plans are
would be
amazing.
That would be a good segue, unless, do you, other
Can I
questions?
just remind everybody in the room that we did have every department head come in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And in reading the 2015 report, if you had read that report, you would have thought that everybody was, it was an inclusive process, that everyone was talked to, and, you know, that's why they wanted the ambulance moved to, you know, the wharf, and, you know, things moved, torn down and completely redone.
Right.
Having interviewed every single department head, 12 of them, whatever number it was, the response from them was not anything close to what that report had said. Everyone pretty much was in agreement that they had enough space, they just needed things updated.
Yeah.
So when you just take a small portion of the current town staff and move them up to the operations facility and rearrange the space more efficiently, you now have a working campus where everybody has room, including the public has a better flow for themselves
Right.
to work in.
Yeah. Denise, I think you had some.
Yeah, I had a question or a comment, and that is one of my concerns with the current building up there and its use is the fact that our watershed is extremely close, and with the fact that there are no real pollutant controls in place, that the salt is stored up there. I'm just worried about moving the building. Will it be closer to the watershed if you
No.
move it? No.
No, it's not moving it towards, it's moving
Okay.
it just down
Yeah.
along. And, you know, that's a good concern. Certainly you want to be mindful of that. There is quite a distance between the building and the water source itself, and the pollutant controls and the stormwater, I mean, the collection systems, et cetera, that are mandated by code, I think would provide some reassurance
Although we
on
don't
that.
have that now.
We do not.
Right.
That's
Nothing
one
now.
reason why we
Right.
want to
Much
hurry up
worse.
and,
Yeah.
and get this
I
done,
think
really.
that's a real, for me, that's a real urgent reason to
Yeah.
move this forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are multiple reasons, but that's
Yeah.
what it doesn't
That's a
get much
big one.
worse than it is
Yeah.
now
Right.
up there.
Monica, is there anything, do you see any public-facing services up at the new facility at all?
Well, there will be some people who will want to visit with the GIS with Mike Galata, I would think.
Yeah, there'll be some contractors certainly that Rich and Gary interact with regularly that would go up there.
Well, the only reason I'm asking, as I'm looking at the layout, there doesn't seem to be any area for kind of a reception area. if you
No,
will.
I will say this, the plans for the administrative area have not been finalized yet.
So where it says canopy storage is built alternate to enclose and finished space.
Yes, that's going to be.
That's what it
yeah,
would be?
And there have been a number of mock-ups done, none of which seem to be ideal, and Joe is going to play a big part in that because it's the space that his people be working in, but we don't yet have a finalized
We
floor
haven't looked
plan.
at that at all.
No.
It's not finalized, but is that
That's the
a
area.
definite for the final
Yeah,
plan?
that's where it
So
will
that
be
will
there.
be part of what it is. So
Yes,
somebody
yes.
drives up, they want to come in, they
Yeah,
can
there'll
visit.
be an office, there'll be.
There'll be
yeah.
something there. Okay, good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, if the office staff isn't there, then the engineering staff are going to have to play that role and it'll have to be configured in such a way that they'll know somebody's coming in. But we haven't gone to that level of planning yet.
So just to keep us moving, because I know we have two other obviously important things to discuss. And I assume so the DPW director and commissioners have you been meeting with them about?
Well, we haven't met with them directly. We've met with the finance committee, and certainly the information that we have has been available, but we haven't met with them directly. I'm kind of assuming
Just one
that
of them,
Joe
yeah.
and Rich are the conduits for
Yeah.
sharing information.
And I think one of the
And I've been giving them updates at
Yeah.
their meetings.
Oh, great, perfect.
Yeah.
One of the early points as well, when the building study committee was started, was having an outside group vet some of this process, and I think the committee has done an excellent job doing that. So it's kind of been independent to that sense, that it's taken an outside look at what's there.
Which I think going forward is going to be really important for residents, because I know that part of what I hear is, well, that's just what the DPW says they need. You know what I mean? So I think it's really helpful now that we have an independent, citizens committee that has really, truly vetted all this stuff, because it's funny, it's like when selectmen say something and people are like, oh, I don't care what you say, but then Mitch says it sometimes, and they're like, oh, Mitch told me this. But I think it will be reassuring for residents that at this point, the DPW commissioners, DPW department, as well as a citizen committee that really vetted it out and looked at all the alternatives. And you've all basically come to the same conclusion, which is obviously most important.
Great work.
It's not getting any cheaper.
No, and that's the thing. Every year we wait, it just
Right.
goes up several $100,000, and there's no
Someone's gonna
sign
get
that's
hurt up there. There's
some.
gonna-
and
there's gonna
there's
be
such a
something.
liability for the town.
Yep.
It's frightening, really. Mitch described to us what happens in the winter when the guys have to jack these heavy trucks up by hand and sneak under there to try to do it, and it's horrifying. It's just horrifying.
Yeah, it's
Do
terrifying.
the costs for the new building take into consideration equipment costs for, say, lifts and things like that? So that's all part of the process?
It's everything. Yeah, furnishing. Okay,
Yep.
great. So next
Thank you.
steps with DPW facility.
So the next steps, we've got this meeting this evening. Building Study Committee has met with Finance Committee once. I'm anticipating that the board has added the meeting next week. It has a couple of general items it needs to address. And then the significant item for that evening would be I'm anticipating a joint meeting with Building Study, DPW Commissioners, and Finance Committee, with the intention of a yay or nay on if this is moving forward in September that evening, so that we can get going next week.
Tuesday?
Yep.
Okay. Does
Because-
that work for everyone here? Does
Yeah,
that work for you guys?
we're all.
Jim? Okay.
And the Finance Committee already has it on their agenda.
do? Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
Because if you look at the timing playing out to the fall town meeting, we have the close of the warrant in mid-July, I think. So we need an article at that time, and then the booklet gets put together in August. We have been proposing, well, the town meeting is on September 9th, that's a fixed date. But we have been proposing that a town election take place exactly 5 weeks later, on October 15th, I believe is the date. And that's the minimum time that Pat Brown needs to put the election together. There is no November election this year, so it can't piggyback on any other election. But that's the proposal. And of course, that's a decision you would need to make as part of this whole process.
Okay. Jim,
I actually will not be able to be here on the 23rd.
25th,
Yeah, I thought was
Tuesday.
Tuesday, the 25th.
Tuesday? It's the 25th or 23rd?
25th.
25th. Yeah, okay, it's the 25th. I won't be here.
You're like, whatever the date is, I can't be here.
But I do think it's important that we move forward on this. Frankly, I think we made a mistake, even though the price had gone up from the initial 8.8 million to 10.8 million. We declined putting this in front of town meeting and putting it in front of the voters. I think we made a mistake then, because I think people do need to know that time is really a cost driver.
Yep.
And we need to give the people the option of, understanding how time is affecting the cost, and then being able to weigh in on it themselves and understanding that. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just think as far as this board has discussed, we think it's important, at least as our former discussions, that that the commissioners, selectmen, finance committee, and now building study committee are all on the same page. Because I will tell you right now, we go to town meeting, and half of us are like one way and half of us are the other, and we might as well not go to town meeting.
Yeah.
But I
And
think
the town
now,
has no options. We have there is no plan B.
Right.
Yep.
There really is not.
Right.
Except to wait another 2 years and see the costs go up, and,
Right.
and the building just can't last another 5 years,
Yep.
never mind
Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
In the meantime, as we mentioned earlier, something catastrophic could happen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And
I'm a
I
little concerned.
Yes, it is.
And I think the other big thing is that we really need to as soon as we make our decisions with finance and commissioners and all the boards, that it's a go, that we need to really make sure that there is a group of champions out there in the town with signs, with letters, getting things going and in a positive way for all the townspeople to understand what this means, and the time is money, and that, you know, it's an accident waiting to
Well,
happen
it needs
there.
to be a campaign,
It
literally,
really does.
just
Yep.
like.
And we
another
know,
campaign.
we can anticipate the opposition, what they're gonna say,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
Rockport
Yep.
doesn't need a state-of-the-art, that
Yep.
blah, 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 and
Yep.
the town needs to be prepared to, address that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jason, did you have a question?
Just another reason to
Yep.
move it forward is interest rates are not as low as they're ever going to be.
Yeah.
Say 3 or 4 years, you may have a completely, Jeff can speak to this as well as everybody, you may have a completely different finance.
Wait, we have to borrow for this? No, just kidding.
We'll talk about
have
that
available in
next,
free
next
cash.
week's meeting too.
No,
I think Carrie was going to try to talk with the tax
great.
assessor on the tax impact, et cetera.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm wondering if it makes sense to, since we're gonna be together next week, to do the old Firehouse Trust talk next week.
That's fine.
Because I think we're a little bit over on time, and I know we have some stuff at the very end of our agenda that we have to get to tonight, some
Right.
setting of some fees. And honestly, I don't think that's a different kind of discussion, I think.
Yep.
I was really excited to see what you,
Yeah.
the conclusion that
yay.
you came
Yeah.
to.
Can we go over the plan, the building plans a little bit?
Yeah. Let's do
Yeah.
that briefly, and then we'll.
Yeah.
And then we can all, after we've had this initial discussion, obviously study this more, and then next week if we have more questions for you.
Just to kind of put the framework on this, the ultimate goal here with these plans is, what we'd like to ask for the selectmen to consider is approving the spending of some money to get a preliminary cost estimate for these plans. The plans are in a good form that you could put it out to an estimator and get a ballpark. And it would be helpful to have a ballpark to work into our capital pipeline, because these buildings do need to be addressed in some fashion anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great. Okay. Is Kate gonna-
So I'm going to let
Great.
Kate take the floor here.
What?
Town hall, I
Let's do
think.
town hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the one you want is, it was mislabeled today.
67,
Yeah.
I think?
Yeah. Ground floor. Yeah, we want I think it says second floor. Do you have one that says town hall, second floor? Yeah. And can we turn it, rotate it?
Sorry, so let me move back to the other screen. I can see a little better. I can rotate it.
Knock on wood, our screen hasn't died on us yet tonight. Well, I did knock on wood, actually.
This is a PDF, we should be able to.
It's under view, isn't it? View rotate?
So views.
Oh, he's working on different.
All right, maybe we can use that. Oh, is that?
Tiny bit smaller. Can you minimize it a tiny bit? Just so we get the whole there.
Yeah.
Okay,
There.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. You see that? Okay, so, basically, what we found in this feasibility study was we don't feel there are gonna need to be any additions to any of the buildings. We think we can renovate the buildings, and we can, by, pretty simple moving of non-structural partitions, we can accommodate all the needs that were identified in all our interviews with all the departments. So,
On this floor, one of the main things, the entries stay the same. One of the main things is organizing this central lobby for the treasurer collector and the town clerk. So you walk in, you have a counter, you have a place to meet, do your work, you're not blocking the counters at each office. We also provided a separate office for the treasurer, because privacy is a very big issue for everybody, so, private office there. And then here we took the accounting, because the big thing was we're moving DPW administration out of this area to the annex. So we freed up all this area. So this area, which really didn't work very well for the accounting office, it was loud, noisy, right by the door, no privacy, works very nicely for a kitchenette break room, an accessible toilet on this floor. This floor has no toilet at all. And then we moved the accounting office over here, again with a separate private office for the accountant, for a town accountant, with dedicated storage, private storage. So again, having privacy, being able to do things efficiently. We also then were able to enlarge the town administrator office, give them dedicated storage, and enlarge the assistant town administrator a little bit. And then the assessor stays where they are. So it's a good layout. Everybody has the room that they need from what we have heard. And then let's look at the ground floor.
And there's additional meeting space, there's a little.
Yes, we were able to get a accessible, from the public
Yeah.
area meeting space, so everyone in the
That's
building can
great.
use it.
That's cool, right on that floor.
Start the count, that's one extra.
That's one, yes.
Yeah. Made you seem excited.
I am, because Kate was able to make all of this work. That was one of the biggest things. It's hard, besides this room and that one, to have meeting space.
Yep.
Yeah.
She really made this work well for us. Let me just rotate this one.
We heard it over and over. No place to meet.
And in the treasurer's office, Carrie has been very concerned about the security of that office. And that was a big consideration in the rearrangement of the space here. It does provide for better security.
Okay, so this floor down here, one of the major things was taking the DPW engineering office and moving that out to the new facility. And so then this room now becomes two rooms. One is a dedicated supply and copy room, and then the other is conference room number 2 that is also accessible, separately from the rest of the building. So, could kind of be locked off, and this could be used at night. We're adding another accessible toilet there, so this all makes a little thing that can be used for in different ways. We left the bathrooms where they are, but made them accessible. We took this back for utility supplies, so they're not in the boiler room. Paint's next to the boiler. And then we enlarged the vault. That's this funny little thing here. No reason for it, so we took that out, so now it's a better sized vault. And then this meeting room is expanded into these funny areas here. We just took those partitions out, they're nothing,
Yeah. So
and
awkward.
then make this partition a real partition with no screens, so there's audio privacy.
It is nice when 2 meetings are
Yes.
going on.
So those are the major changes on this building.
Fantastic.
Great. Which one next?
The annex, yes.
Annex, okay. Rotate that.
So you see, most of the existing walls stay where they are.
Mhm.
That's good. Okay, so here, we took the area that is currently the planning board area, this whole area here, and then this is a hallway. Combined them to make the DPW administration area. And, with windows onto the lobby, accessible, et cetera. This is Joe's office in this building on the campus. This is a conference room, number 3, because you can use it from DPW, but you can also use it from the public hallway here. The conservation stays where it is, meeting room stays where it is, and then the building inspector moves from up here down to this area, so, you know, they're close to the public, because one of the things was, you know, nobody knows they're back there. They walk in here and they're all the way back here.
Right.
So here they are with an eye on the entrance, and people can see them right away. Their own storage area, and then down the hall is the planning board area here. This is an you know, we figured instead of it just being empty space, put another conference table in there. It can be a layout table for the building inspector, for the planning board, you know, just flex space. The vaults will stay as they are, the bathrooms stay as they are, and the utility security stays as it is. Upstairs stays exactly as it is, with all the computer
With IT
equipment.
up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
By eliminating that central corridor that goes back to the building inspector and incorporating it, you're really getting a much more usable and efficient use of space in that.
A lot of added square footage.
Yep.
One of the things with the annex is that it's not convenient for meetings as far as, you know, when you go to the planning board, it's kind of tough. You got a long table. I mean, I know the furniture kind of probably just placeholders, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
is that space, are you looking at that from an actual meeting standpoint? So when they have a meeting, it's gonna be a better experience for the public when they're there and easier for them to communicate with themselves? Because now, you know, they're kind of looking down a table at each other and everything else, so.
I'm sure things could be rearranged differently. You know, this table can be taken away immediately, and all the chairs can be put there as they do now, right?
Well, there are just so many options now. We
Yeah.
have
Right.
so many
It's
meeting
the
rooms.
space is
Might
wide
not
open.
need that space
That's
for
right.
meetings,
Yeah.
honestly.
Right.
They can
but-
choose which
right.
works best, which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And certainly furniture can be,
Can be set, like, you know, this meeting when we're here, at least we sit here,
Yeah.
public's here, and it's easier for
Yeah.
everything to,
yeah, maybe, you know, not
Flow.
have this big, heavy table that you can't move, have something that could be moved in different arrangements.
And another point about this, the space where you have, where we are proposing planning board and building inspector, it's currently occupied by the nurse and the Board of Health, I think. But our proposal is to move them across the street and make that the central.
Part of the emergency services
Yeah.
area.
Right, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. This is like fascinating
Yeah.
to me. I'm like, it's just amazing to me that we formed this committee, how long ago?
Well, it's a long time ago now.
I know, and I know you guys have been
Seems like
so hard at work, but it's just amazing to me, like what you're here with tonight. It's just wild. We can't
Everybody's
thank you
helping.
enough.
It's
Rich
been a
got
great
the
team,
background.
yep.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So now the
All right,
central.
now
part.
the fire.
Okay, here's the first floor of that facility. So let me go up a little bit. The apparatus bay is the same, so I'll
Right,
just
we're
pull
not
down a
changing,
little bit.
except for adding the,
There's a decon shower. There's currently nothing other than, you know, you have to go up through the building if you're contaminated. So this is we need to just do that. So.
okay, so, right, so, on the fire department part, we've moved the fire chief downstairs. This was just, you know, kind of strange area that did nothing. We, rearranged the toilet to make an accessible toilet on this floor. We are adding, an elevator so that we can make the second floor accessible. This is pretty much staying the same. This, we thought, which is now the second ambulance bay. We're now rearranging this ambulance area garage to make 2 bays.
Yeah.
So this could be forest fire or, you know, other fire equipment. And then you know, again, finding square footage. So this is all the old jail.
Right.
That's just been
Yeah.
sitting there
Yeah.
unused, you know, for how many years. So this now, all of this becomes the ambulance area with a new entrance here, entry hall, muster room, equipment storage, men and women's toilets with showers, Rosemary's office here, a little kitchenette here. So they're all self-contained and with 2 ambulance bays. And then here is where we've moved the Board of Health office. We have another meeting room here, again, accessible to the public or Board of Health, the nurse agent, and another accessible toilet. And then over here is the animal control and recreation area with their own little entry hall. area.
What are the recreation areas?
It's the recreation department.
So I'm sorry, do you mean on the upstairs piece, or?
Yeah,
No.
I
Oh, so
saw
we'll,
this
we'll,
is the
we'll-
ground floor.
Yeah, we'll come to that piece
you're
in a
looking
sec,
on
yeah.
the-
Oh.
Yeah. It's what it is now at the moment.
Recreation department.
The
Yeah,
department is
recreation
that corner.
department is sort of in this area.
Okay, got it.
And these stairs are already here. So, yeah.
Great. Okay.
So, all right, I will start over here then in the fire station. So now we have the elevator that makes this accessible. This big multi-purpose training room, again, could be used for other meetings. This is, for now, it's called the recreation
It-
room now.
It is, there's a pool table in it now, it's kind of where they have their meetings, it's a room.
Yeah.
I just want to, if I could just touch a little on the long-term thought for some of that piece. So as we look down the road, and even short-term as well, we have no good place for when we have our folks there overnight or when there are needs like that. They kind of crash on the couches and in the chairs in that rec room. So this gives us an option now to have that space still there. And then in the future, if we need to have people actually in the facilities and if the town moves in a different direction down the road, we have it laid out. Kate was able to make this work so that we've got some long-term options and some short-term needs met as well.
Great.
So,
Okay, could you come do my house for me, please?
I'm retired.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
We see that. Your retirement is our gain.
So that's, and then the kitchen stays the same, the pantry stays the same, add a fire door to the top of the stairs here, you know. And then also, one important thing for both parts of this is adding a fire exit here. That's the only kind of new thing. And you can get to it from both the fire station and the emergency services area. And come down.
Good to have.
We're
Yep,
hoping.
yep.
Fire station.
Yep, good to have at the fire station.
Important having a fire
Right,
station.
I know, wouldn't that be? So
that
up
embarrassing?
here, this is what Rosemary's office has been up here, you know, we've moved her downstairs. So we'll have the emergency services office, another meeting room that can be used by everybody, another, bathroom. You know, put a fire door on this stair too, so there, you know, 2 exits from everywhere.
Wow.
And that's
Fantastic is right.
and all of
good.
these give
Thank
us
you.
long and short-term. Even
Yep.
some of this other area that
Yeah.
Kate was able to make this work so that whatever we want to do down the road, 5, 10
Yeah.
years,
Right.
it's all available.
Yeah.
Fix the basics, the building needs everything, fix that, and then we're good to go.
Yeah.
Then it's programmatic changes.
Right, right.
That's-
So,
Oh, I'm sorry,
Right,
no,
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 go
no, go ahead, I don't want to interrupt you.
no, I was gonna ask about a next step on this, so you go ahead.
Well, my question is, we've talked about the interior of the buildings, what about the exterior? What do we need to do outside of, let's say across the street? What kind?
The annex?
No,
No.
at the.
Oh, a fire.
At the fire, at the,
Yeah,
exactly.
both these buildings.
Roof, exterior windows, things like that.
Roof, windows, masonry. On the fire station, we want to try to raise the lintels over the fire bays, that kind of thing. We're going to be putting in some doors where there are currently windows. So HVAC systems, fire suppression systems, all those things that will bring it up to code, both buildings up to code.
But the general condition is okay? Is
Yeah,
that-
I mean, they're
that's-
structurally sound buildings.
Structurally,
Yeah,
okay.
as the chief will say, it's a fortress. It really
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
And
Okay.
they're already,
And
they're
they're already
roofs.
on for new roofs.
Right,
Yeah.
for this
Doing
budget
that work
season, we approve
won't
that.
impact this
Yep.
work. We could do, that doesn't change.
Yep.
Good.
Cool. Amazing.
Amazing.
So next steps for this would be to find some money to get cost estimates.
Yep.
Okay.
And we have some funding in our next year's budget to accommodate for some consulting work, so we need to just look at what that is. Our office does have some capacity for that. We did plan for some consulting work.
Great.
So.
Okay.
Awesome. Any other questions on this? Yeah, this is amazing.
It's a lot to bite, so you've envisioned this in phases, I'm correct?
I would.
With town hall being first, I would imagine, or is that not right?
That would probably make sense. I mean, it requires discussion. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to undertake it all at once? I think we all know that's not going to happen. But we haven't really thought about the phases. It would make sense, it would seem, to start with town hall. You have the DPW move out, and that right away provides opportunity. And, you know, if the DPW moves out, it would be nice for even the office staff to have a temporary camping ground up in the new building while work is being done. Right. But if you're going to put them in the annex, you kind of have to think about what are you going to do first.
Right.
You can't do much if they're sitting there in town hall. You can't do anything until you move them somewhere. So the phasing is going to have to be worked out. But first of all, it would be nice to get a cost estimate for the
Really see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's certainly going to be a lot less than the proposals that were put forward in 2015, which were far more aggressive and expansive in concept. But we also have to keep in mind that the buildings need work anyway.
Right.
And if you're going to do work and you're going to invest money in the necessary systems anyway, you may as well do it in tandem with some interior space improvements that are going to make it, again, good for the long term.
Right, looking towards the future and not just currently. Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Well, honestly, can't thank you all enough.
Thank you very much.
As I know we
Thank you.
keep saying.
Welcome.
Really.
And we will see you next week.
Yeah, you will.
Same time, same place, right?
Exactly.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Joe,
you.
Rich, thanks for all of your work on this. I know that you guys, thanks, Jim, for representing tonight. We'll see everyone next week.
Except Jim.
Yep, except Jim.
And we'll put Firehouse Trust on as well next week for separate discussion, which is kind of a separate discussion from this anyway, so. Thank you. Okay. Ruth, you need to leave at 8:40, right? Okay, so let's, okay, great. Okay, approval of minutes of June 4th, 2019. Is there
I
a
move that the
motion?
Board of Selectmen approve the minutes of June 4th, 2019.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? No, look good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Selectmen and town administrators updates and liaison reports. Mitch, do you have anything for us?
I will defer. I have an item for next week's on the committee membership for those who are on other elected boards, but we'll deal with that
Oh,
next
great.
week.
Okay, perfect. Great. Okay. Liaison reports. I don't even know what day it is, to be honest. I'm just like,
I'll go.
go ahead.
Okay. I have a couple. I just want to touch on CPC. CPC is meeting tonight, as Toby mentioned, to vote on going forward towards the fall town meeting and things that they're recommending. One, the total requests are $432,200. They've had several groups pull out. The ones that are still going are DPW for the Millbrook Park bench for $15,000. Owner/one unit at the Addison Gott House for $16,900. And that is a condo unit. It's the tall house on Pleasant Street with the big tower.
Yeah.
They're looking for some assistance in some repairs because it's historic. I don't think that's going to pass muster. It's a condo unit,
Yeah.
and they have to have all three condos agreeing on it, and they're not. So one lady is pressing forward. I don't think personally that one's probably going to
Okay.
pass the test.
Because of that, or
Because it's a private house
it's a
that would.
private
It's a
house.
private
Okay.
house that would have to have a historic, preservation restriction on it.
Okay.
And they would all have to sign off on it, and they're not, I don't think they're willing to do that
they're
from
not
what
all
I've
willing
heard.
to sign up
Right.
off on the
Yep.
the restriction.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
The town administrator put in for an affordable housing assessment for $23,000. That was well received. The Rockport Library for an engineering study, $27,400, and that was for a lot of work in the basement for storage of records and books and things like that. Sandy Bay Historical for roof and structural improvements for $49,900. They've come back several times and changed some things, and I think that's probably a go. The Concom to help build up their trust fund, $100,000, which CPC usually does every couple of years, so they can have money available if a parcel comes up that needs to be bought quickly. And
Probably a good year to do that if there isn't.
And we had they had less applicants this year. And Harbor Light for the Granite Street Crossing Housing Project complex for $200,000. So I think it's going well. They're doing good.
Yeah.
They've got lots of money in that. That's going to be one of those ones that has to have federal housing, federal monies, and all kinds. And it's just a little bit here, a little bit there. We've given them CPC has given them money.
Yeah, I thought they were finished coming to CPC, but
Yeah,
apparently
no,
not.
they're not. This
Okay.
is probably the last year, but
Okay.
they are working fast and furious to get that going, and that's going to be elderly housing and some townhouses for low income in the back. So it will be very nice. And I have been going to the building study committee meetings. I've tried to be at every one, trying to listen to those. They have done an amazing job, amazing. And the one meeting with the finance committee last week was very well received. I think they did a great job. Both sides did very well. And
That it was
yep.
well received.
Yeah, I thought it was very well received. I think they all learned a lot from each other, and it was a good meeting. And then the other thing I was just going to touch on was the Firemen's Memorial that we were invited by the fire department to attend. I think all the selectmen were there. Mitch was there. It was very nice. It was well received. And it was an honor to be part of the Firemen's Memorial.
I think that was the first time, at least
Yeah.
since I've been.
It was the
Yep.
first time.
The first
we've
time
been
ever.
invited.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
very nice.
So it
Of
was
course.
nice. So
Yeah,
those are
nice job.
those are my things. I have Board of Health and CPC tonight, which I won't be able to attend. But
Okay, great.
I'll be back on the road next week.
Okay.
To all my
Great.
meetings.
So I attended the Council on Aging meeting earlier this evening and shared a little bit from that. And then I did attend the Concom meeting last Wednesday. There was an extensive discussion on the subject of boardwalks. And I think that Dan was very clear that he thought it was in the Selectmen's court. From my understanding and conversations with Mitch and his discussions with the town attorney, it's actually on the Concom's court. So I will be attending the next Concom meeting to kind of help to maybe have a conversation about that so that we're all on the same page. I also wanted to bring up the question of the parking spaces on Long Beach for the tennis courts and the extra parking spaces. I actually am going to write a letter to the DEP, so let me back up a little bit. The Concom, over the course of 2 meetings, voted to oppose removing vegetation, undisturbed vegetation, one of the last undisturbed areas on the dune, voted to oppose removing that vegetation in order to put 6 parking spaces up. The DPW and Mitch came back to the Concom in response to concerns that they heard at the first meeting and proposed two parking spaces. Based on discussion in that meeting and the previous meeting where data was shared about the mean high tide, issues relating to the fact that we have very little undisturbed vegetation on the dune itself, the Concom felt very strongly that they were not in favor of doing this. I understand the history with the tennis courts and the commitment to provide 2 parking spaces for the tennis court and the issue of guest parking on Long Beach. But the Concom voted against it, and Mitch and the DPW decided to appeal that to the State Department of Environmental Protection. And just by way of context, the only other time that we've done that is with the issue on the wharf down at Pigeon Cove Harbor. So it was a real escalation, as far as I'm concerned, of bringing this to the DEP.
Hold on, didn't we
do it?
Penzance Road.
And Penzance Road. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
those were the other
'Cause
situations.
I attended the DEP.
So, I'm very concerned about the fact that, first of all, the Concom
acted within their authority to deny the permission for this. The appeal was not for the 2 spaces that the DPW came back for, but for the 6 spaces that was in the original report after they had already come back to the COMCOM and reduced the footprint in response to their concerns. And unfortunately, I think we're at the point where reality is meeting reality on Long Beach. I walked Long Beach with Mitch yesterday. He took the time to go down there with me, and there simply is no more room. We are already losing part of Long Beach, and if you've been down there lately, you see the manhole cover that's about 2 feet above ground at this point. Ideally, we'd love to put more parking down there. I think we'd love to, just like we'd like to accommodate everybody who wants to park in Rockport. But the fact is that there is simply no more room, and removing more vegetation from that dune is not going to serve the homeowners. Removing more vegetation from the dune is only going to serve to destabilize an already unstable situation. So the DPW has gotten a grant and is going to put in a living shoreline at the far end of Long Beach to try to stave the erosion of that land. The homeowner at the very last house has had to truck in gravel to try to be able to get to the stairs that lead up to his house, and it washes away regularly.
Right. That was approved by
That was
COMCOM, right?
approved, but there are no precedents with
Right.
Conservation
Yeah,
Commission
I understand.
decisions.
But that was just approved, right? a few
That
weeks
was
ago?
approved
Yeah.
within the last few months. But that doesn't mean that they have to therefore approve everything that comes before them. So I feel very strongly that this is a mistake on the part of the town to try to add more parking in an extremely sensitive area that is not going to get any better. We are fighting a losing battle. And I just think it's a misuse of our stewardship and our responsibility to go ahead and remove vegetation in an undisturbed area at a time when we really need all the vegetation we can get to try to keep the dune in place. That's what holds the dune in place. And it's not going to help anybody, including people who want to park their cars there, to remove it. So I am going to write a letter in opposition to the appeal.
That letter will be just from you
From
and not
me.
in your capacity as a selectman.
Yes, it will be in my capacity as a selectman.
Make it clear that you don't speak for me or
I will
anybody else, please.
Be happy to do that, Don.
Thank you.
If I may finish.
You
I am
may,
writing a letter
absolutely.
from me to oppose the appeal because I think it's a mistake. And I just want to make clear that that's my opinion. I agree that it would be great to have more parking and that people already park inappropriately down there, but removing more vegetation and adding 4 parking spaces is not going to solve the parking problem on Long Beach. 4 parking spaces is not going to make a difference. So that's my say.
But the two spaces for the tennis courts would fulfill the CPC.
Right.
Correct.
And when
Yeah.
I offered that and asked that we propose that to the DEP as a compromise, Mitch polled, I believe, all of you, and the direction that he got was that the board wishes to move forward with additional parking. I think that if we could come to the point where we say, look, we'll go for the 2 spaces, try to minimize the footprint of those 2 spaces, minimize the removal of the vegetation. I can't speak for the Conservation
But
Commission.
they voted no for that.
Right.
Correct, they did. They voted.
But
for two- I mean, I listened to
unfortunately, the process, the way it works is the hearing was closed. They unfortunately
Right.
closed the hearing.
Right.
So there's no room for discussion.
Right, but I
after
just
the
don't
fact.
see, honestly, after listening to the tapes, I just don't see how they would go, they were very clear
So
that
now
2
we're going to
wasn't.
put 6 in?
No, I
Well,
mean, Mitch
that's
said
the
that-
appeal.
I think-
Mitch said the
appeal was for
DEP
6
comes
spaces.
and says what they
They,
think is appropriate.
they will make
right?
the final determination on what they deem
Right.
is
Right.
appropriate.
But we've asked for 6 spaces, and we've said in our appeal that the Conservation Commission was unreasonable.
So the topic of the additional spaces that's needed. So I explained to Selectman Donnelly the reason that I did need to individually poll the board members is that the board has a standing directive and a long-standing directive that moving in the direction of additional parking at Long Beach. So I did indicate that I'm not able to withdraw that piece in an appeal unless the board tells me otherwise.
So Mitch, if I may, you and the DPW came back to the Conservation Commission and requested 2 spaces in response to their concerns. You then filed an appeal after they denied that and asked for 6 spaces. I don't understand why suddenly the need for additional parking is added when you didn't come back to the Concom and ask for those additional spaces.
Sure. So the need, well, I had some more to add on there,
They
but
applied for originally.
the original request was for 6.
Right, and they said no to both.
Right.
So if I could
When
perhaps
they came
answer,
back-
if I
when they
could,
came back,
Right.
Mitch said, we have a commitment to 2 spaces.
I think you should let Mitch answer.
perhaps if I could answer, thank you. So the need for the spaces never went away. We went with the 2 to address at a minimum the CPC needs. We would still then have to come back and ask for the other spaces. So in addressing the need never went away. We said, okay, at a minimum, we've got to get the tennis court going because I can't have DPW put signs up that says public court until I have places for people to park.
Sure.
That never ever negated the need for the additional guest spaces. Because that's still the directive of the board. That's still the wish of the board that we continue with guest spaces. So in trying to work with Concom, Rich did come up with, okay, let's at least get the tennis stuff done. When that was rejected, we said, well, we still need all of it. So it would not be fruitful for us to say, let's do 2, and then let's go back again and do additional. We moved forward with our original application.
So the reality is the need and the reality on the ground are colliding. The need for additional parking, there is no room left. You and I walked that whole beach yesterday. There is no, people are already parking in the marsh. There is no room left for more parking unless you tear up vegetation, and that's going to further destabilize the dune.
Had the DEP already given approval for use of these spaces? Had that been
Of
something-
those spaces?
Yes.
No, it
There
didn't.
wasn't,
It
okay.
didn't
So
go.
this is the initial. this is
Correct. The
initial-
only work that's been approved has been the tennis court area on the other side of that dune.
So I'll just speak from what I know. So for CPC, we had the application for the south end tennis courts. They're not Long
Right,
Beach's tennis
right.
courts.
That
Let me
was-
get that straight.
That was right.
Right. They're south end tennis courts on
was so
Rockport,
much misinformation
on
in the Concom
Rockport
meeting, I
town
feel
land.
terrible that I didn't go
Right.
to
They're
explain
Rockport town land. They're not the Long Beach tenants' property. And in that, we had a long discussion before we even passed it to town meeting that we must have at least 2 parking spaces, if not 4, because there were 2 courts there and people would be playing. So we'd need several cars. In the meantime, we were told by the town administrator at that time that that was okay. We have a letter telling about that we could have the tennis court parking spaces. They would be done when the tennis courts were done.
And Ruth,
In the-
wasn't there a Concom member on CPC at
Yep,
the time?
we had Mary Ann Lash, and then we had also Mel Michaels, who had been on the Concom as an auxiliary member or ancillary member, whatever. And then we had someone else after that. And that was in 2017, I believe that was passed. In the meantime, we got permission from Mr. Pratt to tell tennis players, once the court got up and running, that they could park there and the town would pay for those until our spots were done. At the same time, we were told by the town administrator that they were looking at adding more spaces down there. They would put it all together and it would be at one time. Instead of digging stuff up, they would put trees or whatever needed to be put back. They would find the appropriate area and put signs up. So I really feel this went to the town meeting. It was discussed. What worries me now is that this was sort of a done deal, and now people change on committees and want to change how things are going to be done now. Those I think all of this, all 6 spaces, were discussed and reviewed way earlier than the last 2 or 3 months. It didn't go to Concom to get approved early enough, I feel. But once it did, it should have been passed because it was from 2017. It was just a formality to get it done. I think if we plan to have remediation of things planted and lots of stuff done like we do all the time at different places, that should be enough for right now. I mean, that's just my personal feeling. And I would send a letter supporting the request of the DEP to look into it and make a final decision. If that's our only way to go, once the hearing is closed, just like other hearings, you have a way to go past that. And I think that is our way of, if Denise wants to send a letter, that's fine. And other people send another letter that other people would sign in unison or whatever. But I think that's going to be the final say of what's going to be done there at this point.
We're not going to allow, Alan, I'll let you comment later under other business, but this isn't going to be an open, this is just going to be the board at this point. Any other comments?
No, I just feel that all proper processes were followed, and because something doesn't have precedent, in order for something to become a precedent, it has to be the originator. So something has to happen first, then that's the predicate for precedent going forward. Not everything has a precedent, so right now, we're appealing this. Mitch, rightfully so, put that appeal in with DEP, correct? Or is it Concom?
It's filed with DEP.
Right, exactly. So that goes that way, and I think that process is the prescribed process, and that should follow through, and we should see what happens from there.
I disagree, but you know that.
Yeah. I mean, I can see both. I can definitely, I agree with Ruth, and it's one of those things. I mean, this is honestly frustrating to me, like when we spent years working to get Penzance Road repaved, and then the board, then it came in front of this board, and the board voted not to repave it, after we had been down there with DEP and the whole, so, I understand, like, frustration with issues. I do, this is one of those things with the two, for the tennis, that I feel like this is what the CPC, this is what the selectmen supported, this is what the town supported. I almost feel like it's like building half a tennis court to not put those spaces there. And it's just not in the spirit of, that those were public funds that were spent with the intention that there would be two spaces. I do see both sides on that Rich came back to the Concom, because I listened to the tapes, with the 2 spaces, and now the appeal is for 4. I see, for 6, sorry. I mean 4 and then 2. I see I see both sides of that, but unfortunately I don't see, Concom, it's a hearing, it's closed, and I mean, as far as I heard, there was no opening to even approving the 2, so I don't see a path. I think the time has passed. I think the time to not support the parking spaces was like several years ago when it came in front of CPC.
I will say, things have changed even since 2017 in terms of our understanding of climate change and this rate at which we are being affected, especially in the Gulf of Maine. And I do want to reiterate that I think it's irresponsible to remove more vegetation from an extremely sensitive dune. It's not going to help the homeowners or us.
And the other issue that we haven't touched on is in terms of Mitch going forward with the other parking. That's something that we have, we've agreed to with the Long Beach leaseholders. I mean, that's part of the lease. So if that's something, if we're going to stop trying to add
I need a board
appropriate
vote on that.
parking
I
and
need a board
not,
vote on that.
because I live right there. I see people parking literally in the marsh. And so to me, to mitigate and put vegetation, I was happy to see that the trees wouldn't be moved, but to see the shrubs moved and to put parking there as opposed to seeing people park in the marsh, to me that seems reasonable. But I also know that we have kind of an ongoing commitment with the leaseholders to continue to add some guest parking. So that's something, if we're going to stop, that we're going to have to deal with that on another. That's kind of another
Correct. The board would
conversation.
need to
Right.
vote to make that change, and
Yeah.
it would need to also determine how it wants to address that with the Long Beach tenants.
Yeah. Right.
Because
But
it
I
does
was-
have
yeah,
some history
yeah.
there.
And I was frustrated listening to the Concom minutes. I feel like we probably all, I know we've made a concerted effort to try to attend more meetings and stuff, but there was just so much misinformation. Someone said, well, if one committee doesn't support something, that doesn't mean that another committee does. And I agree with that, but a CPC project that has passed through Selectmen support, CPC committee, and then town meeting. That's not just a committee, that's not just a committee supporting something. That's been through like a year-long process, basically, and that's something that if one of us had been at the meeting, we could have at least corrected, because I know that, Carol Cook was at a meeting and she was sharing information. There was just a lot of misinformation being shared. There was a Long Beach leaseholder down there who was sharing information. There was just a lot going on that, but hindsight is 20/20 in terms of going to meetings.
And I do think that besides being a Board of Selectmen, I'm an individual person in the town. I own property. I live here. I think we all have individual rights to comment how we feel.
Yeah.
But I think on the flip side, if I feel one way and you fourth feel the other, that's how it is. And we are appealing to the right authority, and we each speak for ourselves, and we need to let the chips fall where they may with the DEP or whoever it is to decide what we have. I really strongly feel that it would not have passed CPC to get to town meeting to get those tennis courts done if we didn't have the parking spaces. It was a slightly contentious meetings at the end to get the tennis courts there because the people wanted to be guaranteed people were able to park because of the privateness of the road and people would have to pay. And some people, because it's a town, it was a town project and it's a town tennis court, that people felt that the people at Long Beach would feel it was theirs and only theirs because there were no public parking spaces.
Because you could only access it by walking down.
Right.
Right.
And it was too long for a lot of elderly
Yeah.
people to walk in.
Well, it would be similar to if all of a sudden there was no parking on Story Street.
So, I mean,
Right.
I don't think we would
That's
have gotten
another-
it
right.
even to town meeting if we didn't get the
Yeah.
approval of the
Yeah.
parking spaces.
But like you just said, we're each obviously part
Yep.
of this board.
Yep.
We're also
Yep.
individuals. So Denise, you are more than welcome, of
Yep.
course, to
Yep.
send a letter.
Everyone has their rights of-
representing
of-
yourself.
And I
Yeah.
agree with that, and I have no problem with that at all. What I have a problem with is that if you're going to send that as somebody from the Board of Selectmen, I think this board should have the opportunity to review that letter before it's sent. I would like to see it because I want nothing alluded to in that letter. I think it's completely appropriate. And I would want the opportunity to look at that to make sure that my views are I'm not being intertwined with yours.
I will commit to you, Don, that I will express that this is my opinion only and not the opinion of the Board of Selectmen. I'm not going to send you my letter to review.
You're not going to. So
No.
you're refusing to do that.
Yes, I am.
Okay, all right.
The letter's from me.
I understand that, but you're sending it as a member of the Board of Selectmen. If
I
you were
will
responding as
state-
Denise Donnelly, private citizen,
I will
I want
state-
nothing to do with it.
Right. I will state expressly that I am expressing my views as myself and not expressing the views of the board.
For the record, I believe it's inappropriate that you send that
Thank
letter
you.
without the full board reviewing it first as your capacity as a select person.
And I think others could send a
You're
different
welcome to
letter.
send your own letter.
Yeah.
Don.
I think
And
others
that's,
could- yeah.
and that's not a problem. And if I
Yeah.
did, and I sent it in my capacity, I can commit to this board and to this town that I would present it to this board first before I sent it. And I'm stating that publicly now, and I think that's just the right thing to do.
Well, we differ.
Yeah, disagreement. Okay.
So I'm also gonna go because it's
Okay.
my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
I hate to leave, but I
Ruth
have
has to
be
get
at
to
work
work.
at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So I can't leave.
Thank you. Thank you
Oh,
both. Sorry it went so
actually,
long.
I have a request.
Sure.
If I may, before I take off. I am starting a new job on Monday, and I'm not going to be able to get here by 6 p.m. Would we possibly be able to start our meetings at 6:30 instead of 6?
I'm fine with that. I mean, we've made changes like that to adjust. We all have work and other commitments.
Okay,
It's fine.
thanks,
I'm
Ruth.
fine with it.
Okay, bye.
You guys okay with that?
That's fine.
Perfectly fine.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you,
fine.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe you should put something on the website, or you know what I mean, going forward.
Yeah, so going forward, we make the adjustment 6:30?
Yeah, and I think since it's later, it's okay to do it immediately. Do you know what I mean? I think if it were going to like earlier, then it would be
we'd
But-
give it some time, but since it's later, it's
Right.
probably okay to just
But I
start it
agree
right away.
that, because there have been a lot of people even up to this point that have come here and said, I didn't realize the meeting started at 6.
Yeah, 'cause
So
it's
I think
earlier,
if
right.
every
night,
avenue that we
Denise.
can possibly pursue to get the word out that the meeting time will change is what we should do.
Yep.
We'll make sure that there's a note on our webpage that says.
Right, that just to let people
Well-
know. Yeah, great. Okay. Any other liaison reports?
Yeah, I have a few here.
ahead.
I'll go through them quick. First of all, I want to thank the town for entrusting me with another 3-year term, so thank you very much for that. It's
Yes,
very much appreciated.
congratulations.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that. Last night I attended the Thatcher Island and the Straitsmith meeting. Paul St. Germain is just, he's as dry as they come, but he's so funny in how he presents things, and he just did a great job. And the whole committee does such a wonderful job out there. I won't bore you with the statistics, but one of the things that I did find fantastic was that they have an 81% retention rate for people recommitting back in and re-upping with their memberships and things like that. So,
Wow. That's
yeah,
pretty good.
that's fairly high above norms for things of that nature. So that's great. Also, Ruth said it earlier, the Fireman's Memorial, it was great to be there. All of us attended. I was honored to be able to speak at that, and it was just a fantastic experience. So I thought that was great. And I believe that's it, except for, bear with me.
What we wait for.
Right, exactly. Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 50 totaling $230,720.34, and expense warrant number 50 totaling $112,752.87 on June 12th, 2019. That's it.
Great, thank you. Paul?
Nope, I'm good.
Great, okay. Action list, we'll just run through it quick. The 3 of us, that's okay, right?
Yep.
Okay.
We have a quorum.
Appointment of Megan Watson as full-time dispatcher.
Yes, when we get to the annual reappointments, we just move on. We've got your item once, but yes, everybody else.
Right. I have to abstain from those because I'm a
Right.
father-in-law. I'll take Megan, is that okay? Denise had it?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Megan Watson as a full-time civilian dispatcher, employee at will, effective June 23rd, 2019.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Sorry, I was chewing my dinner. Any discussion?
Nope.
That's exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carries. Appointment of lifeguards.
I move that the selectmen appoint Chloe Arnard, Taylor Aldwood, Samantha Boudreau, Noah Cook, Haley Falls, Samantha Grove, Thomas Michelisi, Hokum, what was it?
Jaquim Mittermeier.
Mittermeier, Samuel Rice,
John
and
should
Paris
take this
Flynn.
one.
That's all right. It's more fun listening to
Yeah.
him do it.
I'm terrible with names.
Second.
I didn't
Employee,
do plays,
finish-
wills,
finish it off.
seasonal lifeguards for the 2019 season.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Exciting to hear that we have an abundance of lifeguards.
Yes.
Well, a couple short, but I talked to Sergeant Boudreau, and he's got a couple more interviews going.
Yeah,
so.
that's like awesome.
Remember when we didn't have any?
Last summer, we were like totally hosed.
Yeah.
Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, appointment of seasonal recreation positions.
Watch this. This is
Yeah,
all
this
it's
is
done.
this is how it's done.
I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Paula Hannon as tennis director, Robert Graham as tennis director, Stacy Twombly as tennis instructor, Paula O'Brien as summer fun director, Allison Chalmers as summer fun instructor, Marianne Ives as summer fun art manager, that's what I thought, and the following summer fun counselors: Griffin Beaton, Clara Collins, Talia McWilliams, Fru Rowan, Kristen Twombly, Lucy Twombly, Phoebe Twombly. We got a Twombly smorgasbord here.
They're not related.
David Ward, Jacob Wessel, Julia Drost, Lily Morell, Colin Porter, Nora Rockwell, Shayla Schaefer, and Francesca Twombly, all seasonal employees at will for the Recreation Department for the 2019 season.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Can we add Ted Twombly in there too?
You're right.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Accept resignation from Jeffrey Moulton from the Harbor Advisory Committee.
I move the selectmen accept the resignation of Jeffrey Moulton from the Harbor Advisory Committee effective immediately.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Unfortunately, but a work commitment is making it so he can't attend the meetings. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Open fall town meeting warrant for September 9th, 2019.
I move that the Board of Selectmen open the September 9th, 2019 Fall Town Meeting warrant.
Second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Permission for Spire and Lodge to use a portion of School Street for their annual Scandinavian Midsummer Fest, which is Saturday.
All right. Good Irishman right here. I move that the board grant permission to the Aspiring Lodge to use portion of School Street between Broadway and the entrance to the parking lot behind the Rockport House of Pizza for their annual Scandinavian Midsummer Fest from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on June 22nd, 2019.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those
Good.
in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carries. Annual, we can't do this one because Paul can't vote on it. Economic Development.
Right.
Her sister-in-law's on it. We'll skip that one. Granite Pier Committee.
Granite Peer Committee, okay. I move that the board appoint John Thompson, Eric Rask, Charles Nichols Jr., Michael Tupper, and Greg Morrell as members of the Granite Peer Committee for terms to expire on June 30, 2020.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion, opposed, nay. Motion carries. Skip Thatcher's. Council on Aging.
I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Suzanne Blake as a member of the Council on Aging for a term to expire on June 30th, 2022.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
That seems so far away, but it really isn't.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carries. Year-end transfers.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve and ask the chairperson to sign the following year-end transfers. $5,934.36 from public health nurse wages to purchase of services. $7,500 from health insurance to networking expenses. $2,000 police sign and post to parking meter attendant. $3,200 election officer wages to EMT wages. $6,800 to town clerk, TC? Treasurer collector operations assistant to EMT wages.
There's-
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I'm thinking we put this one off.
Yeah.
Can we do that? I think
Yeah,
we-
except that they're waiting.
Oh.
My
We
only,
can't.
well, I was just gonna briefly say to Mitch, like, do we know, do you have a recommendation that's simple?
So
and-
the grocery store is $1,000.
Okay,
I think this could certainly be in line with that.
$1,000?
I don't think there's an issue with aligning it to the grocery store. It's a sales thing, it's a non-consumption license. I don't think there'd be any issue with that.
Did you research any other communities to?
I did not go through the other communities. I looked
Okay.
at what we had internally, and I think it lines up very similarly with the grocery store for this.
So you think we're okay with that?
I think you could certainly do $1,000.
I mean, I don't know how we could, I don't, yeah,
I'm not sure how you could do more.
right, yeah.
Right, no, that's
It's more
fine.
as a restaurant, right, yeah.
Correct.
The only reason I say do it is because I know they're literally, like,
Yeah,
they're
no, that's
emailing Mitch.
No, that's fine. No, no, that's
Because I forwarded the email to him.
I just don't want to go too low and I don't want to go
low.
too high.
I know, so 1,000
know, I
actually
wanna
probably
be
sounds
fair to
perfect,
what
'cause
they are.
that's-
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that, and this would immediately allow them to open up.
To
Well,
get
to
going.
notice, to start the application process, right, Mitch?
Yes.
Yes.
So how long by the time?
So we'll go through the
Talking about
normal
turnover.
process. A normal application for alcohol is a month or so?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I
The
know-
ABCC's
I read
involved,
one
there's a
of them
quarry.
is hoping to open like mid-fall,
Yeah.
early fall.
Yeah.
And I know
Haberfest.
one of them is already open business.
Mm.
So
Good.
my guess is like within a couple months.
Yeah.
Does 1,000 seem reasonable? It
Yeah.
does to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't, we can always change it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
'Cause
let's
it's
do
an
it.
annual,
It's
it's
an
an
annual
annual
license.
license.
You want a motion?
Yeah, if you guys are
Yeah.
good with it.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm fine with that.
Because I don't think, you're right, I don't think we can charge more for it, and less seems like, I don't know, it seems like a reasonable amount.
And
Okay.
And if we find out that we're not charging enough or we're charging too much compared to other municipalities, we can change it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I move that the Board of Selectmen apply a license fee of $1,000 for wine and malt specialty gourmet shop licenses.
Second?
Motion's been made, seconded. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Alan McMillan missed the open public comment, so I told him to take just a minute to make your comments that you were going to make earlier.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First, Conservation Commission did a site visit on Long Beach this past Saturday. We found 21 houses without house numbers on them down there. That's the list of the houses. I spoke to the chief of police tonight, and he agrees that's a safety issue. There is a town requirement. All houses have to have a number.
Sure.
Okay.
Those listed.
Okay, can you just give that to Mitch?
Oh, sure.
Thanks.
These listed
Okay.
which do not have
Okay.
house
Thanks.
numbers.
Thank you.
And the other thing, a quick thing on
You-
the issue.
Do you want to back up just so the camera gets you? Stand behind the podium.
And you
That
need a
way-
microphone,
Yep.
Ellen, if that's okay.
Perfect.
And hit the button, because that's red. It needs to show green
That
on
way-
the base.
Yep, if
Just
you
press it and
press
let
the
go.
button once. There you go.
There you
All
go.
set.
Perfect.
Now
Fix
she-
your hair, Alan.
Now she can get you. Great.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Alan McMillan, Conservation Commission, 18 Story Street. On the issue of the parking spaces on the beach, we also conducted a site visit down there. There were 2 mature trees cut down at the hearing that we held that Mitch was at. The DPW said they did not cut the trees down. Ward Talbot is the next door neighbor to the tennis court. We queried him on Saturday, and he said a private contractor cut the 2 mature trees down, one a an 18-inch diameter tree, and the other one a 9-inch diameter tree. He said the DPW hired a contractor to cut those 2 trees down. I'm just telling you what Ward Talbot said,
Fine,
and he
okay.
is the neighbor.
Okay.
The other thing is, we are having a site visit with the DEP this coming Tuesday at the 25th at 10:30 a.m. if any of you wanted to come. The entire area is flood prone and has seed-driven debris scattered all through the site. So this one, and Ward Talbot also said no one drives down there. It's mostly, we were there for 2.5 hours on Saturday, and no one used a tennis court on a beautiful sunny morning.
I was there today, and there were 4 people playing tennis.
Right, and Ward said that the people who come down there are people who live on the beach, so I just wanted to
That's
say that.
right. That is
Yeah,
one
yeah.
one person's opinion of down there.
Just
Yeah.
on the tree cutting, because I spoke with Duffy Greel again today, just to verify, and if anybody would know, it'd be him. He doles out the schedules, and he verified again today, we did not cut the trees down. We did not hire anybody to cut the trees down. We have no idea why. It would be, it's somewhat inappropriate for someone to assume that we hired it, and tell people that. Mr. Talbot was, I discussed that with him previously. The town did not pay anybody. The town did not do it itself. It's very odd. We have no idea why someone would go in and do that.
Right, we wondered the
It's very,
same
very
thing.
odd.
Yeah.
We did not do that.
Great.
I can
so you're
guarantee
comfortable
that.
the town didn't do it.
Yeah.
Great.
I don't know. Rich doesn't know. Duffy doesn't know.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you for
Thank
listening
you.
to me.
Thanks.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
for sitting through the meeting. Sorry, it took a long time.
Good night.
Okay. Anything else under other business? We have a meeting next week.
Yes.
And then the next week.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Lots of fun.
Lots of fun. A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I'll take it.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
You can't
Aye.
screw that
Opposed,
one
nay.
up.
Motion carries.